What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 12 Knots Chapter 211 Obito's Undercover, 2 in 1. Haruki suddenly raised his head and glanced at the sky. The sun at noon is not hot, and it has a warm breath. Cloud Shinobi Village is located on the top of the mountains. Although they are ninjas, the complex terrain still slows their speed. If it is Haruki alone, there is no need to consider these. But among the 30,000 ninjas, there are quite a few genin who are inferior. Shuo Mao, let's fix it here for a while. Haruki turned his head and ordered. Okay. Hitaki was taken aback and quickly ordered everyone to rest and have lunch. I have left beforehand. When Haruki saw this, he talked to Hitaki Tsukumo, and he disappeared without waiting for him to ask. Strange, what is Haruki worthy of such a rush? Hitaki Tsukumo was puzzled. With the unfolding of Flying Thunder God technique, Haruki came to this rainy country. In addition to the sound of rain, all kinds of explosions, fierce collisions, etc. poured into the ears. He immediately determined the situation around him. Tsunade suppressed Uchiha Madara. I looked at her body and found no injuries. Jiraiya, Nagato and Konan played against Hanzo and had the upper hand. Toad Wentai and Sanjiao Fish are like a quagmire battle, very fierce. Finally, Haruki looked at Nohara Lin and Obito. The reason why he came was because the diamond kunai on Yi Yuan Lin's body was activated. At this time Lin Nohara was surrounded by various earth-style ninjutsu. Even with the protection of the inner armor, the limbs and head were severely attacked. Obito was knocked to the ground by Sancho Fish Mida. After a while, he struggled to get up. Haruki immediately moved. He took out a prepared clone and used chakra to forge similar scars. And it was replaced in an instant. With his current strength, it is impossible for White Zetsu to notice it at all. Obito came to the pit and saw the corpse of Nohara Lin's breathlessness. His head was immediately struck by lightning. Impossible, impossible, Lin. Obito hurriedly jumped down, hugged Rin Nohara, reaching out his hand in fear and touching her nose. There is no breathing or warmth. Died. This thought came to him in his mind. The body trembled violently. The invisible and cold breath was suddenly released. The blood in the eyes began to spin. Uchiha Madara's eyes lit up when he was fighting Tsunade. This familiar feeling. Mangekyo Sharingan. Unexpectedly, Obito gave him such a big surprise. He thought that Lin Nohara's death might not allow her to evolve directly, and even prepared a second set of plans. But it's not available anymore. Uchiha Madara immediately took a body replacement technique and left the battlefield. In the case of deliberate escape, even Tsunade could not pursue it. He appeared in the pit. Obito was overwhelmed with grief and Uchiha Madara came silently, and he didn't even react. Uchiha Madara directly stunned Obito with a hand knife. Stop! Tsunade saw this scene and immediately shouted. But Uchiha Madara suddenly exploded too fast. It disappeared in just an instant. The Sancho Fish Midak controlled by White Zetsu immediately stepped forward and entangled in death. Tsunade killed him a few times. She looked at Yi Yuan Lin and couldn't help sighing. This is troublesome. Obito was caught and Lin Nohara died. How should I explain to Haruki? Tsunade's face was extremely ugly. Don't tell me. The sudden voice startled her. And you, Kakashi, people are not dead yet. Haruki glanced at the collapsed Kakashi and said. He put Nohara Lin on the ground. Haruki? Tsunade immediately showed a look of surprise. If it wasn't for the wrong location, she would definitely hug him directly. You. Oh, it's Diamond Kunai. She thought of the reason and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It was true that diamonds hadn't been used in 7 or 8 years, and she had forgotten to have this thing. Kakashi on the side wiped his eyes quickly. He almost burst into tears. He glanced at Yi Yuan Lin in front of Haruki, and then at Yi Yuan Lin in the pit. He couldn't help but be puzzled. But he has more important things. Teacher, what should Obito do? Don't worry, Kakashi. Tsunade returned to the calmness of the past. She said on behalf of Haruki who was treating, since her teacher has arrived early, Obito will not be dangerous. He did this, and there must be a reason. Haruki glanced at Tsunade who was talking, and smiled. Well, not bad, trust me so much. He put his hands away. Nohara Lin gradually woke up. Lin, are you okay? Kakashi knelt down and asked immediately, I'm fine. Yi Yuan Lin shook her head. She was warm all over her body now, and she was not at all uncomfortable. I will explain the Obito matter to you, but not now. Haruki stood up and said, you temporarily blocked the news that Nohara Lin is still alive. Okay, you go and take Rain Shinobi Village, I'll go to Obito. He squeezed Tsunade's face and disappeared into the rain. Uchiha Madara took Obito back to the underground base. In front of the huge Gedo statue, White Zetsu appeared. He naturally did not dare to stay. Master Madara, the power you rushed into should come from Sharingan, right? White Zetsu looked at the sleeping Obito, remembering the gloomy atmosphere that had previously filled the pit. Well, yes, in terms of strength, it should be Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Madara lifted the elephant Juan technique and returned to his old-fashioned appearance. It was really thrilling to be able to complete the plan this time. The heart that had calmed him for a long time felt a violent beating. But fortunately, all the dust fell, and he achieved the desired goal. I started Mangekyo Sharingan at the age of 12. White Zetsu was surprised and admired. Master Madara, your eyes are really high. Uchiha Madara thought slightly. Obito's talent did not reach this level. It should be that his body was developed in advance. Uchiha Madara thought of Haruki. As a medical ninja, he has no doubt about Obito's role in promoting. Compared to the original 12 years old, Obito at this time, whether it is Sharingan or Chakra, is stronger. Perhaps this caused Obito to open his eyes just by witnessing the death of Rin Nohara. Rather than seeing Kakashi kill Rin Nohara, Uchiha Madara couldn't help but sneer. No matter how powerful you are, Haruki will fall into the calculations of my Uchiha Madara. Wait for him to wake up. Uchiha Madara did not force Obito to wake up. Just let him adapt to the changes in his eyes first. The only curious thing is what the power of his eyes is. Master Madara, where will Akatsuki organize them? White Zetsu nodded, then asked again. According to their original plan, in addition to Obito, they would also kill Konan or Yahiko, making Nagato into an extreme and making it easier for them to control. But now Rain Shinobi Village will definitely be destroyed. It means that Akatsuki's power further increases, and with Konoha's help, their plan will be more difficult to implement. Don't worry about it for now. Uchiha Madara thought for a while and said, if Obito goes well, let him join Akatsuki to handle this matter. Time flies. Headache. Obito's first reaction when he woke up was to touch the back of his head. I always felt that someone was attacked by a hammer. He looked at the dark cave, a little confused for a while. What's going on? Why am I here? I'm not in the country of rain, Lin. Obito got up, thinking of the last scene before he fell unconscious. Countless attacks attacked Lin. Where's Lin? Damn, where does this come from? He frantically searched for an exit, turned around and saw the huge and hideous Geto statue. What is this? Geto statue. Uchiha Madara answered abruptly. Who? Obito followed the voice and saw the old Uchiha Madara with a nutrient pipe inserted under the Geto statue. Who are you? You brought me here. How'd I get out? Lin is still down. I'm going to save her. Little guy, don't worry. Uchiha Madara shook his head while listening to his series of words that appeared like a machine gun and said slowly. If it hadn't been for respecting the old and loving the young in school, Obito would really like to interrogate directly. But Uchiha Madara calmed his hot head. He sat cross-legged and took a deep breath. Because of Rin Nohara's excessive concern, he overlooked a very serious problem. There are diamonds in her body. I also have one. This was given by Haruki when he joined the Sha organization. He remembered that the teacher said that this diamond was sealed in the Flying Thunder God technique, and it would be triggered when it was in danger. But what happened to Rin Nohara that he saw? I really lost my breath. It shouldn't. With the strength of Chingshu teacher through the sky and the Flying Thunder God technique, there is no reason to save Yi Yuan Lin. Was it an accident? Is it on purpose? At this moment, Obito rarely reached the peak of his IQ. The premise is his trust in Haruki. If you want to harm them, you don't need such complicated methods. And he is actually not stupid, he was just dazzled by love. The education he has received over the years has made it impossible for him to be as direct as Blacken in the original work. Obito thinks of what happened in Akatsuki in the past few days. Because he is Haruki's apprentice, Jiraiya, Nagato and others did not avoid him when discussing. He knew about the leak of Akatsuki's whereabouts. After Tsunade arrived, he brought information from Haruki. It's not that Akatsuki has an insider, but there is a mysterious ninja. And this ninja, he had also seen it in previous battles. With fire style, it can be inextricably beaten with Tsunade's wood style. The strength is definitely the top in the Jonin world. At the same time, he had another problem. Who has such great ability to take oneself away under the nose of Tsunade and others? Why did you take yourself away? Uchiha Madara glanced at Obito in surprise. Unexpectedly, he could really calm down. I couldn't help but appraise him a little higher in my heart. I am Uchiha Madara, he said straightforwardly. What? When Obito heard the name, he still broke the power in 1 second. He was stunned at the old man who seemed to be driving him west in the next second. It is difficult to connect with the Uchiha Madara in his mind. That peerless strong man who ended the troubled world with Senju Hashirama, and eventually turned into enemies for various reasons, and evolved into a battle of birth and death. Impossible. Lord Uchiha Madara has died in the hands of Lord Senju Hashirama. Obito recovered and shook his head quickly. That's the god of ninjas, how could he escape and hide from him? It's really impossible under normal circumstances. Uchiha Madara is not angry, he rarely talks about the past. Do you know Izanagi? Do not know. Although Obito is Haruki's apprentice, Izanagi is extremely expensive as the ultimate pupil technique. He is still Chunin, not enough to touch the secrets of the Uchiha clan. It is a powerful secret technique with Sharingan Ninja, and the effect is to transform all unfavorable factors into dreams, including death, in a short period of time. Uchiha Madara raised her head to reveal her Sharingan. Before I battled Senju Hashirama, I sealed Izanagi in my right eye. I was indeed dead, but I was resurrected because of this pupil technique. Obito opened his mouth. There is such a terrifying pupil technique in this world? It's almost equivalent to coming back to life. If what the old man in front of me said is true, based on time calculation, maybe he is indeed Uchiha Madara. He thought for a while and said, even if you were the ancestor of the Uchiha clan, why did you bring me here? This is exactly what I am going to say next. There are many, listen carefully. Uchiha Madara became serious. From his feud with Senju Hashirama, to the stone monument of Nanga Shrine, to Project Tsuki no Mi. After listening, Obito's head buzzed, very ignorant. He has a feeling of listening to fairy tales. Obito has heard of many things for the first time, but the part about Sharingan is not bad as he knows. 3-Go Jade evolved into Mangekyo, he knew it. After all, Mikoto is there, but the rest is outrageous. Obito suddenly felt that Uchiha Madara's peace concept was familiar. It wasn't exactly what he had discussed with a certain old woman. In his opinion, this old woman was too extreme. Because her relatives died tragically in the war, she hated war and wanted to create a world without war. And the so-called Project Tsuki no Mi, drawing everyone into the illusion, in a sense, there is indeed no war. But what is the point of such a false world? And Konoha is not bad now. My time is running out. Uchiha Madara looked at Obito in thought and slowly said, I hope you will implement Project Tsuki no Mi on my behalf. I don't know what you think. Is Lin dead? Obito suddenly raised his head and asked. When Uchiha Madara saw this, he sighed, but inwardly, joy came to my heart. It seems that Obito is the bait. Not in vain, he kept saying that in Infinite Tsukuyomi, all his relatives and friends will be resurrected. You do not see it, Obito plummeted to the ground. His expression is very heavy and sad. At this moment, he seems to be possessed by Haruki, and his acting skills have reached the pinnacle. He deeply realized that Eye of the Moon was a very dangerous plan for Yamato. For Konoha, and even the entire ninja world, there will be a huge threat. Haruki and others are certainly strong. But against the legendary Uchiha Madara and Rinnegan, the outcome is hard to predict. In just a few minutes of thinking, he came up with a bold idea. Pretending to promise Uchiha Madara, do things for him, and eventually uproot them. And this kind of credit is enough to overwhelm Kakashi, right? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 212 New Mangekyo, Third More. While Uchiha Madara waited for Uchiha Obito to answer, he was watching his expression. He got along with Obito or communicated deeply. Konoha's influence on Obito can be said to be very serious, whether it is his education or his attitude. In addition to Nohara Lin, he also has teachers, teammates, clansmen and classmates. It is impossible for him to completely abandon him. Uchiha Madara actually knows this very well, human nature. But if Obito proceeds according to his instructions and plan, he will inevitably enter a path that cannot be turned back. Just collecting the tail beasts, you have to fight against the major Shinobu villages. What's more, there is an absolute guide in secret. Obito's own strength is also under his control. Even if they pretend to join, both he and Ju have countermeasures. Uchiha Madara retracted his gaze and found nothing unusual for the time being. Obito did appear sad and painful. After a while, he asked, what are you going to do? Obito slowly raised his head, ending the memory of Kakashi's past. He did not directly agree to Uchiha Madara's request. Haruki once told him, don't rush to negotiate with the enemy, and you can't show your cards all at once. And now Uchiha Madara is almost a bright card. He said in a deep voice, I want to return to Konoha first, and at least take Lin away. Uchiha Madara nodded slightly. Obito's performance made him more relieved. If he agreed, he would definitely be suspicious. I let White Zetsu take you there. Good. Obito did not refuse, but nodded in agreement. He already knew White Zetsu that it was an accidental product of Uchiha Madara's use of Gedo statue to cultivate Senju Hashirama cells. In addition, there is a deeper black Zetsu. By the way, you have turned on Mangekyo Sharingan. Uchiha Madara remembered what happened during the day and said with a smile, now you are known as the top powerhouse in the Jonin world with Mangekyo Sharingan. Mangekyo Sharingan? Obito was startled slightly, he hadn't checked his body since waking up. I don't know that I awakened Mangekyo Sharingan. His eyes suddenly shook, and the shape of a black triangular blade appeared. At the same time, a lot of information flooded into my head. He couldn't help showing a look of surprise. When Mangekyo Sharingan is turned on, you will get two kinds of pupil surgery that are as powerful as ultimate. Of course, if you use too much, you will lose your eyesight. However, transplanting Senju Hashirama cells can reduce the side effects. Uchiha Madara looked at him and said, my research on Senju Hashirama cells is far superior to Konoha. It can ensure that your eyes will not be blind for a long time, and I also know how to upgrade. Can it be upgraded? Although Obito is not clear about the true and false, Uchiha Madara's implication is very obvious. As long as you join Project Tsuki no Mi, all these can tell you. Interest temptation. Obito took a deep breath, nodded, and said, thank you Madara. Uchiha Madara's mouth hooked. If you want a horse to run, you have to give it grass. He still knew this truth. What are your two abilities? Uchiha Madara was a little curious and asked. My left eye ability is to increase my pupil power, and my right eye ability is to make myself contact with people and things that can be transmitted to a different space. Obito told him without hesitating too much. The main thing is to create the illusion of trusting him. And he lied. His left eye ability is not bad. After Uchiha Madara listened, there was no doubt. Wanwa Sharingan's ability reflects the soul. After witnessing the death of Rin Nohara, Obito came up with the idea of becoming stronger and escaping from the world, not surprisingly. Uchiha Madara commented, although your left eye ability is simple, it is very effective. It is powerful with various pupils of Sharingan. The right eye ability is the first-class life-saving and very rare spatial pupil. With the ability of binoculars, it can be attacked. Even if you can't beat it, you can run away. I think so too. Well, now that you have this ability, I feel more at ease going to Konoha. Obito's no reservations made Uchiha Madara more assured of him. According to his original plan, he might have to let Obito stay here for a while. In that case, I give you the first task to join Akatsuki. Although Nagato got my Rinnegan, his thinking is too naive. I hope you can correct his mistakes. I'm probably a little sure about this. Obito groaned. I understand my brother, his peace actually has a serious conflict with Konoha. It is still possible for him to join us. Uchiha Madara was slightly startled. It seems to make sense. He had entered a dead end earlier, thinking that only strong stimulation can make Nagato change. But Obito reminded him. Nagato wants peace, so Konoha, the most powerful one at the moment, cannot be avoided. Obito continued to analyze. Konoha has gathered 3 tails, 8 tails, and 9 tails, as well as powerful new ninjas, which can threaten the entire ninja world and drag them into war until they are unified. But Nagato will be willing. Is it eliminated and unified? In his cognition, he does not want to use extreme force to achieve peace, but Konoha is embarking on this path. All extreme force is in Konoha. Uchiha Madara was surprised by Obito. He didn't expect him to know Nagato so well. According to him, he does not need to design any accidents. The affairs of Akatsuki are left to you, but you should understand that Nagato is just our tool. Uchiha Madara reminded him not to be emotional, but he didn't say any more. Can't be rushed. Anyway, he won't let go until he fully trusts Obito. White Zetsu appeared in front of the 2 people. Uchiha Madara glanced at him, and immediately let the 2 of them leave. White Zetsu returned him with a clear look, reach the ground. Obito glanced around. It turned out to be a bridge. White Zetsu did not conceal it, introducing. We are under the Kamimubi Bridge in Kaoin Village. Obito took down the name and followed him to Rain Shinobi Village. After a while, Harumi appeared. Because of the presence of the Geto statue, he did not dare to get too close to avoid being discovered. Now that I see Obito and White Zetsu, I can't help but touch my chin. This guy has defected. It shouldn't be possible. Haruki knows Obito far better than Uchiha Madara. If he really thinks that Rin Nohara is dead, his emotions must be even more exciting and exaggerated. Now, although my face feels heavy, it is more like a pretend. He directly returned to the Akatsuki organization base by flying Thunder God. One time, there was a gap of almost 3 or 4 hours. At this moment, Rain Shinobi Village is completely occupied by Akatsuki. Haruki asked, and came to Rain Shinobi Village again. Saw Nagato and others in a building. Suntree. Tsunade first noticed his arrival. Haruki smiled and greeted the others again. Teacher, what about Obito? Kakashi couldn't help asking without seeing Obito. No hurry, he will come right away. Haruki stretched out his hand and patted him on the shoulder, beckoning him to stay safe. He looked around and was about to let the other people in the office leave, and suddenly found that Jiraiya was not there. Where's Jiraiya? Why didn't you see him? Fumita Toad brought news of Mount Myoboku, saying that it was Toad Sage who told Jiraiya to go back. Tsunade explained. Haruki frowned. He didn't have a cold for the so-called Toad Sage. But Jiraiya trusted them too much. He was silent for a moment and resumed his business. Suddenly, only Nagato, Yahiko, Konan, Tsunade, Nohara Lin, and Kakashi were left in the office. Don't be afraid of what I'm going to say below, don't be surprised. Haruki talked about the causes and consequences under the concealed circumstances and the identity of Uchiha Madara. Probably it was Uchiha Madara who fancied Obito and wanted to lead him to do things in order to subvert the entire ninja world. Obito can't go with them. After listening, Lin Yi Yuan was the first to speak, her tone decisively. I feel so too. Kakashi said second. Although he is an idiot, his love for Konoha is no less than that of anyone. His wish is to be Hokage, and it is impossible to be fooled by such an unknown ninja. Haruki smiled and said, I didn't say that he betrayed Konoha. He is very likely to become an undercover agent. I saw them coming towards Rain Shinobi Village. Then you will cooperate. Kakashi and Lin Nohara breathed a sigh of relief. If Obito becomes a traitor, then they really don't know what to do. Nagato, Konan and Yahiko, I want to talk to you alone. Haruki glanced at Tsunade. Tsunade immediately left with Kakashi and Nohara Lin. You have now fulfilled Akatsuki's short-term goal and brought rare peace to the country of Rain. What are you going to do next? The three looked at each other, and finally Nagato spoke. Teacher, we plan to follow Konoha and let the country of rain restore livelihood first. That's a good idea. Haruki was startled slightly, and then smiled. Nagato's words were a little unexpected, but it also proved that Akatsuki, which was not under the influence of Yu Uchiha Madara, was indeed relatively normal and rational. Then, Haruki asked again, after the rain country is strong enough, what are you going to do? Start a war? Of course not. Nagato shook his head quickly. I hope to keep enough peace with them. If they initiate a war, our country of rain will be responsible for ending the war. When Haruki heard the words, he burst into laughter. Sure enough, it was naive. In fact, he felt that after losing Yahiko, Nagato's philosophy had merit. Let the ninja world fully realize the pain of war, use terror to restrain the war, create a tail beast and his own deterrent. But how to put it, there are many shortcomings. What if the country outside of the rain is unified? Haruki looked at him and said seriously, you may not know that Konoha has already taken the Thunder Country, sitting on the two countries, and has become a well-deserved Big Mac. Nagato's eyes widened suddenly and fell silent. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. According to Konoha's current power, they could not stop the war at all. On the contrary, it will make the country of rain fall into war again, and even completely perish. What should they do? There is simply no way. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 213 Nagato, 2 in 1. Nagato thought to no avail, and looked at Haruki. Although he owns Rinnegan, he is not yet confident enough to match the whole world. In addition, he did not summoning out the Geto statue, so he still doesn't know the true power of Rinnegan. After Konoha occupied the Land of Thunder, both the conventional ninja army and the high-end combat power far surpassed the Land of Rain. As Haruki said, they could not restrict Konoha. After being silent for a moment, Nagato said, from what I know about the teacher, I believe that the teacher is not the kind of person who wantonly launches war. Nagato, maybe you should go to Konoha now. Haruki narrowed his smile and seriously suggested, only in this way will you understand why we will start a war against the country of thunder. I can tell you that the country of water and the country of soil are also our goals. Nagato's body was shocked, a little unbelievable. According to Haruki, isn't it almost equivalent to unifying most of the ninja world? I do not understand. Nagato asked hesitantly, teacher, it should not be a bloodthirsty person. Otherwise, it won't help our Akatsuki organization. Once the teacher initiates a war against the water country and the land country, countless lives will be squandered by then. That's why I suggest you go to Konoha for a while. Haruki said this again. I know you don't have a good feeling for Konoha, but you stayed in the rain country for too long and don't understand its changes. If you really understand it, you should know why I started war. Nagato's so-called peace is too much for granted and beautiful. It may only be infinite Tsukuyomi if you want to achieve it. The reality will only become more complicated, and there will be imbalances between people for various reasons. Sometimes communication cannot solve the problem. For example, the communication between nobles and slaves. It's a pity that even infinite Tsukuyomi is just a scam by Black Zetsu. Can only give bubble-like peace. Nagato looked at Haruki blankly. Thinking about the meaning of what he said, he actually knows a little about Konoha's changes, but not a lot. I only know that many reforms have been carried out, and it is now exceptionally prosperous. Seeing this, he intends to imitate Konoha and hope to bring hope to the long war-torn and poverty-stricken rain country. Thinking of this, Nagato nodded and said, in a while, I will go to Konoha. At that time, you can ask Tsunade to assign some people to the country of rain to advise you and restore the economy. Haruki also remembered Nagato's previous words, but blindly copying them would cause problems. The country of rain and the country of fire are too far apart. The land of fire and Konoha have undergone many years of transformation, and the foundation alone is much better than the ruined land of rain. Besides, Nagato, I give you another choice. Haruki smiled slightly and talked about his ultimate goal, Konoha. No, or in a new country, I will establish a new department, which I call the Supervision Department. Its function is to supervise all the working ninjas or officials, including daimyo and Hokage. If they are corrupt or pervert the law, they will have the power to impeach them and arrest them. Nagato couldn't help his eyes widening. This department surpassed his previous knowledge. Even daimyo and Hokage are subject to supervision. It's simply a fantasy thing. But think about it carefully, if it's really as Haruki said, it might bring unexpected results. Then how should the personnel of this department be selected and how should they be supervised? This involves another department of Konoha, the policy department. Haruki didn't explain it anymore, it was too complicated to say, and they didn't have enough time. I will ask Tsunade to arrange for you to be an observer by the policy department, and then you will be able to solve your doubts. Okay, thank you teacher. Well, the last thing is about Obito, or about you. Haruki pointed to Nagato's eyes and said, that mysterious ninja has extraordinary strength and special purpose. Your Rinnegan has infinite abilities, and he will definitely spy on you. If he can, I hope you, like Obito, pretend to agree to the mysterious ninjas, figure out their personnel and methods, and get rid of them at that time. I see. Nagato understood why Haruki wanted to talk about this to him alone. Naturally, the less people know about undercover, the safer it is. He thought about the performance of the mysterious ninja on the previous battlefield, and he was a little confused. Teacher, as far as his strength is concerned, he seems to be completely inferior to you. Why do you bother? Nagato, he is just a clone. And I followed them, and found a lot of secrets in their bases, including some related to your Rinnegan. Haruki didn't tell Nagato that his Rinnegan actually belonged to someone else. The main reason is that he can't accept it. He has been considered a ninja who changed the ninja world because of these eyes since he was born. This concept is deeply rooted. Suddenly all collapsed. I'm afraid there will be problems. Rinnegan? The expression on Nagato's face immediately became serious. If Rinnegan is involved, he has to take a look. Okay, I promise the teacher. Haruki smiled upon hearing this. Sure enough, Rinnegan's temptation was not small, and he didn't lie. After all, such a big ghetto statue. Nagato, the last sentence. Haruki looked up at him and said seriously, the supervisory department I told you earlier, I hope that one day you can become the person in charge of it. Nagato never expected Haruki to say such a sentence. He asked in surprise, why me? I think you are a good fit. Haruki patted him on the shoulder, whether it is your character or your eyes, and the peace you seek may be realized here. Nagato was stunned. For a while, he couldn't understand why his peace had something to do with the supervision department. Haruki didn't say anything, and called Tsunade and others back. In order to avoid White Zetsu's suspicion, they began to talk about how the country of Rain should develop in the future. The first is Rain Shinobi Village. After Hanzo's death, Rain Shinobi Village was nominally attributed to Akatsuki. But there are still many remnants of the party in secret. Nagato and others must deal with and reform Rain Shinobi Village. Fortunately, Akatsuki has developed for so many years and has many members. In human hands, there is no shortage. As for how to change it, the three of them had already prepared to follow the Konoha village model. Haruki thought for a while, and proposed to open a project bidding meeting in Rain Shinobi Village. After reorganizing Akatsuki and Rain Shinobi Village, they cooperated with Konoha's major departments to plan the entire Shinobi Village. If there is no money, the Infrastructure Investment Bank borrows. When Obito approached the hall quietly and saw such a scene of intense discussion, he couldn't help but feel a little skeptical. Oh, no, I'm all missing. Why don't you care at all? Shivering and cold. Am I so unimportant? Seeing this, White Zetsu next to him, with the idea of instigating discord, mocked. It seems that you are not as important as they thought in their minds. To shut up. Obito's acting skills improved, angrily on his face. Alright. White Zetsu shrugged and asked, for what reason are you going to go back? Just say that Sharingan has gotten a further improvement, so I managed to get out of the clutches. Obito had already figured out the reason, and said without hesitation. Good excuse, good luck. After White Zetsu finished speaking, he sank to the ground and disappeared. Obito frowned slightly. He didn't even notice his existence at all. He couldn't help being a little surprised. After turning on Mangekyo Sharingan, his strength is almost the best in the Jonin world. Even so, I still can't see White Zetsu's disguise. Obito couldn't help sighing in his heart, as expected it was something related to Rinnegan. He let out a sigh, his face became particularly heavy, and he pushed the door open. Obito? Kakashi, who noticed him, immediately stepped forward and asked, are you okay? Go away. Obito slapped his hand away, went to Haruki, and asked stiffly, where's Lin? Obito, what's the matter with you? Without waiting for Haruki's answer, Kakashi asked quickly, startled slightly. It has nothing to do with you. Obito said without responding, looked at Haruki again, and repeated, where's Lin? Kakashi. Haruki winked at Kakashi and then said, come with me. He turned and walked out of the hall, directly to a room in the southwest. Lin? Obito slammed the door in and saw Nohara Lin on the bed. He hurried forward. A rotating triangular blade suddenly appeared in his eyes. After a while, his body shook and said, it really is fake. Haruki closed the door and set up an illusion to isolate White Zetsu's line of sight. It's just a clone. Haruki wants him to see what he sees. Not bad, you can actually see that this is a clone, is it your eyes? He was a little surprised when he heard Obito's words. After all, there is no difference between a clone and a real person. And your acting has improved very quickly, Haruki boasted again. During a performance in the hall, even Kakashi was deceived. Hey. Obito smiled triumphantly, the heaviness of the disguise on his face disappeared without a trace, and he said grinning, Kakashi said I'm an idiot. I think he is. It is the teacher's clever calculation. It seems to have been foreseen, and I am not surprised by my behavior. Kakashi cares and messes. Haruki went straight to the bed and said, this is a clone of Lin, used to confuse Uchiha Madara and White Zetsu. Teacher, you actually know the two of them? Suddenly speaking these two names from Haruki's mouth, Obito looked surprised. At the same time, I also wanted to complain. Uchiha Madara and White Zetsu made such secrets, and the result was all known. I have dealt with them in the country of water. Haruki explained casually, then smiled, I saw the ancestors of the legendary Uchiha clan. What do you think? No idea. Obito told the truth. It's just a loser in the dark. Hey, you dare to say it? Haruki heard this, knowing that he was not bewitched by Uchiha Madara. Originally, his infinite Tsukuyomi plan is nothing more than a false means of escaping from reality. I don't like such a person. Obito shook his head and said, with this time, it's better to consider how to rebuild the ninja world. Haruki frowned slightly, and Obito had indeed grown a lot. No longer a secondary 2 boy, although the essential character has not changed much. It seems that your years in school have not been deserted. Haruki praised him and said, you have temporarily gained the trust of Uchiha Madara and White Zetsu, so stay with them. I have the same idea. Obito's eyes opened with a smile, and he could think of a part with Haruki-sensei. What does this show? It shows that he is as smart as Mr. Haruki at the moment. Definitely more intelligent than that idiot Kakashi. Although the current strength of the two of them is not as good as Konoha, they have many secrets, which may pose a huge threat, especially Geto statue. That guy looks even more terrifying than Nine Tails. Obito analyzed and said, the story told by Uchiha Madara is relatively long, not as shocking as the Geto statue gave him. Such a large body fits several Nine Tails. Presumably its combat effectiveness is extraordinary. Good. Haruki was very pleased. It's rare that even Obito can say this. Obito was a little proud when he saw this. After a short pause, he said, I can see that Lin is a clone. It is because of the power of my left eye that Tensui can resurrect dead creatures. Although Haruki had guessed that Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan would change, he was still shocked by this Omosiri fate. Resurrection is undoubtedly a bug-like ability. It suddenly occurred to him that this is not a single-player version of the revolving heaven technique. Immediately, Haruki's face changed slightly, and he asked, did you tell Uchiha Madara? No, Obito lifted his chin and said, I knew this ability would definitely be missed by him, so I made up a fake pupil technique. You did a good job this time. Haruki couldn't help but glanced at him again and said, presumably Uchiha Madara didn't tell you why he gave Rinnegan to Nagato. It was because he wanted Nagato to use the revolving heaven technique at the cost of his life to bring him back to life. Of course, if Nagato is not obedient, he may leave this task to you. Obito shook his body suddenly, and said angrily, this old guy is so insidious. It's Uchiha Madara after all. Haruki smiled and patted him on the shoulder, so you, don't be fooled by his momentary actions, thinking that he is sincere to you. I see. Obito breathed a sigh of relief. He did think that Uchiha Madara was only going to execute Project Tasuki no Mi, but he did not expect that there would be a resurrection layer. If it hadn't been for Haruki to say it, I'm afraid he would not know that he was used as a substitute for the dead. In fact, he was really miserable in the original work. Controlled by Black Zetsu, he became a toolman for the resurrection of Uchiha Madara. The power of my right eye, Kamui, can transfer me or the things I touch to a different space. Obito went on to introduce another pupil technique of his own. It was actually Kamui. Haruki was a little surprised when he heard this. But I can understand it. Seeing the girl I love dies, I either want to escape or resurrect. Teacher, when I come back today, in addition to confirming Lin's life and death, I just want to woo senior brother Nagato. Obito looked at Haruki and said softly, if it doesn't happen, Uchiha Madara will do something with Konan and Yahiko so that Nagato will be like me. Well, Nagato, I have already told him about it, and the rest depends on how you compiled the language to hide it from White Zetsu. Haruki pointed to the clone and said, take this back. As Orochimaru's pinnacle work, no one can detect that there is a problem with her, unless you use your resurrection pupil technique. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 214 Cloud Shinobi Village Reduced to History, 2 in 1. Because of Haruki, Uchiha Obito convinced Nagato that it didn't take much time. But in order to convince White Zetsu, he and Nagato had an acting exchange between the brothers. After joining Akatsuki clearly, Obito put forward his own suggestions. An extra elite group was established, with 2 ninjas as a group, and go out to perform a variety of complex and difficult tasks. And this is the idea of Uchiha Madara. Let more powerful ninjas join the Akatsuki organization. At the same time, it is convenient for him to put in personnel, such as Ju. After Haruki learned about it, on this basis, he added a new proposal. Obito naturally has no opinion. It's actually very simple. Recruit the rebels from the major ninja villages. Many well-known, most of the traders have a skill, either strong strength, or master with a variety of secrets or ninjutsu. Everyone is a talent. In order to avoid rebels and harm Akatsuki's organization, Nagato immediately made Obito the leader of the elite group and delegated the power of formation to him. All in all, Obito was very satisfied with the final result, and White Zetsu was also very satisfied, meeting Uchiha Madara's expectations. Obito didn't stay long. After bidding farewell to Haruki and others, Lin returned to the underground base with the clone Nohara Lin. He will spend some time here and receive the teachings of Uchiha Madara. Although his current strength is not good, his experience is very rich, especially on Sharingan, which can bring great help to Obito. Coupled with the Senju Hashirama cell transplantation operation, Obito's strength will surely increase by leaps and bounds. But the time will not be too long. If Obito can stand his test, he will officially launch the Moon Eye project. At the same time, Uchiha Madara, who has been struggling for so many years, may commit suicide, waiting for the resurrection of Nagato or Obito. After Obito left, Haruki also prepared to return to the Land of Thunder. Cloud Shinobi Village has not yet finished processing. It was another rainy weather. Holding an umbrella, Tsunade silently looked at the rain country in the distance, remembering that she and Haruki met here a few years ago and fought side by side. Suddenly I felt that time flies so fast, in the blink of an eye. He went from being a medical ninja with no name to Sannin and then to Hokage. You are in such a hurry, don't you leave after a while? Tsunade's other hand held Haruki's big hand, and there was clearly warmth in the cool weather. Suo Mao and the others are still waiting for me. If they don't go, they may have to run away directly. After Haruki finished speaking, he shook his head again. With Hitaki's character, most of them have already set off. Although Tsunade wanted to stay with Haruki for a while, she knew the priorities and would not waste time because of the long relationship between her children. She thought about it, her eyes were a little shy, and she stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek. Go early and return early. Haruki smiled, and put a hand around her soft blonde hair. Do you know why I didn't stay? Why? Tsunade was puzzled by his sudden question. Wasn't it because he was going to Cloud Shinobi Village? But she was very cooperative, raised her head and stared at Haruki's face, her eyes full of curiosity. Because half a day is not enough. The corner of Haruki's mouth raised a smile, leaned to her ear, and whispered, according to the fighting strength of the two of us, it will take several days to stop. After finishing speaking, taking advantage of Tsunade's daze for a few seconds, she kissed her on the lips. Asshole. After Tsunade understood the meaning of Haruki's words, he had disappeared. Only her face was flushed. It changed from rainy to sunny all at once. Haruki is not used to it. He glanced around, and sure enough, Hitaki Tsukumo and others did not stay to wait for him to return. Without hesitation, he continued to fly north. From time to time there was thunder in the sky. Haruki did not use flying thunder god technique. It is a rare experience to experience the feeling of flying in the clouds. Fast and refreshing. After all, flying is a human dream. In less than half an hour, Haruki caught up with the ninja coalition, which was marching slowly. Shuo Mao. He fell to the forefront of the army and looked back, no different from when he left. It seems that the 20,000 Rain Shinobi Village ninjas are very well behaved, and there are no young people with a surge of blood. I'm home. Hitaki Tsukumo was used to his sudden appearance, and greeted him slowly, saying, we will be at the mountain where Cloud Shinobi Village is located right away. You're back in time. How is the situation at Cloud Shinobi Village now? Are more people running away? Haruki and Hitaki Tsukumo walk side by side. In order to take care of most of the ninjas, the speed of the two is not very fast. Within a few days after Darui left, some people wavered and ran away sneakily, but not many. Hitaki Tsukumo talked about the information from Anbu. Although he did not do anything to the ninjas of Cloud Shinobi Village according to Haruki's instructions, the surveillance was always there. Because Konoha has not arrived, and the people who left have not been hunted down, the people who stayed have a fluke. Hitaki Shigeru actually felt that Haruki was overconfident or overly indifferent about this matter. If it were him, it would definitely be necessary to clean up these ninjas who had run away. It's their own choice. Seeing his expression, Haruki probably guessed his thoughts. A few people just leave with them, and give us Konoha a good reputation by the way. If there is anyone who wants revenge, I will naturally deal with it. The elite group of Akatsuki organized by Obito was prepared for them. Gather all the ninjas who are rebellious or hostile to Konoha. It not only saved Haruki and Konoha's time, but also made Akatsuki's organization stronger. In conjunction with the so-called Project Tasuki no Mi, this group of arrogant guys will definitely have the illusion that they are very powerful. Then launch an offensive against the tail beast or Konoha. But your boss is my ninja, how do you fight with me? Haruki can completely master their whereabouts and inspire his juniors by the way, lest they feel that they are invincible in the world. He feels more and more that this elite group can do a lot of things. Hitaki Tsukumo didn't know what Haruki was thinking, but when he heard what he said, he still trusted instinctively and didn't say anything. Soon, they reached their destination. The sunny tree climbed up the towering mountain peak and saw a village that seemed to be in a fairyland. The group of ninjas behind them were very excited. Whether it is Konoha or Cloud Shinobi Village, but obviously the reasons for their excitement are not the same. The former is to make meritorious deeds, the latter is to go home alive. Haruki went straight to the Raikage building. Along the way, he saw the gaze projected from both sides of the street. Most of them carry hatred. Cloud Shinobi Village has a martial nature by nature and is relatively united, so it is not afraid to see Haruki. However, noticing the army of Cloud Shinobi Village behind, he was surprised and fortunate. They stayed because they heard that Haruki didn't kill them. A dozen people were waiting in front of the Raikage building. Haruki glanced, most of the skin is dark, but the strength is good, all Jonin. This should be all Jonin left by Cloud Shinobi Village. When they saw Haruki, their mood was very stable. All that can stay is mentally prepared. Haruki couldn't help but sigh. Cloud Shinobi Village is indeed very different from what he imagined. But he also knew that this was largely due to the 20,000 army of Cloud Shinobi Village he brought back. Everyone was silent, waiting for his order. Shomu, let the 20,000 troops of Cloud Shinobi Village go home. Haruki's first words surprised them very much, and they did not expect it to be such a treatment. Azabui, please let all Jonin from Cloud Shinobi Village come to the Raikage building. Without waiting for their excessive reaction, Haruki continued. Mabui, who had been quiet before, gave him a strange look. Does this guy know what he's talking about? Change to other people. I am afraid that the army of Cloud Shinobi Village will immediately mutiny. But thinking of Haruki's strength, she sighed in her heart. If a person reaches this level, she can indeed ignore the entire Cloud Shinobi Village. She nodded silently. The eyes of Jonin, who hadn't seen it with their own eyes, but had heard of it a long time ago, flickered. I'm afraid the rumors are not false. Under the leadership of Cloud Shinobi, Haruki came to Raikage's office. He was unceremoniously sitting in the middle. On the left are Hitaki Tsukumo, Uchiha Fugaku, Hyuga Hiyashi and others, and on the right are Mabui and Samui. Jingwei is clear. Haruki swept across the ninja in Cloud Shinobi Village. Only Mabui and Samui were acquainted with. Sami is Darui Chunan's teammate for the exam. The reason she did not leave is because she has a younger brother, Otsi. As the Cloud Shinobi Village, which is comparable to Konoha, there are not many Jonins. Apart from the ones that have been disposed of, there are still nearly 300 people. It's huge. How to deal with this group of people? Haruki had a plan long ago. Let them learn again. Haruki raised his head and couldn't help smiling when he saw the slightly nervous expressions of Mabui and others. I will not do too much to the remaining ninjas, as long as you follow my arrangements. He knew what Mabui and them were thinking, and there was no unnecessary nonsense. The first sentence dispelled their doubts. The first thing, I will send Konoha's ninja over to build the school. The original rules and regulations and textbooks will be abolished, and we will follow Konoha's rules in the future. If you want to assimilate Cloud Shinobi Village, there is nothing more effective than education. When generations of children learn Konoha's knowledge, Cloud Shinobi Village will naturally disappear. Mabui and others had never thought of such a distant event. The first thing Haruki said is still acceptable. No, it should be said to be unexpectedly mild. They thought there would be tougher terms. We will follow this matter. As the representative of Rain Shinobi Village, Mabui came out to answer. In addition to your children, you also need to attend classes. Only if you pass the exam will you be entrusted with important tasks. Suspiciousness appeared on Mabai's face. She didn't understand Haruki's intention. Why, as Jonin, have to go back to school and study again? But she remained silent. This requirement is nothing. Jonin's strength makes it easy to pass the exam. The second thing is that the clothing, text, language, and size of Cloud Shinobi Village in the future will be completely synchronized with Konoha. Cloud Shinobi Village and Raikage will be cancelled, and the department will be reorganized. Haruki looked at the people in front of him and said slowly. Compared with the mildness of the first thing, the second thing is naturally more excessive, and even murderous. If things go on like this, Cloud Shinobi Village is destined to disappear into the vast history. Mabui raised his hand to stop some impulsive and angry Jonin. She bowed slightly behind her and asked, Master Haruki, can you keep the names Cloud Shinobi Village and Raikage as Konoha's subordinates? No, Haruki refused her request without even thinking about it. Azabui was silent for a long time. I understand. The atmosphere in the office is a bit solemn. Haruki smiled indifferently, and continued. The third thing, Konoha will be reclassified as a business, and certain industries will no longer be allowed to operate privately. The ninja lives on tasks. The task is essentially an economic issue. As long as he controls the economy, it is equivalent to controlling Cloud Shinobi Village. What's more, he also laid down the Kingdom of Thunder. Mabui glanced at him strangely. Haruki was far from the ninja she had in mind. How can a ninja care about these things? So this matter is very easy for them to accept. The ninja didn't care and looked down on the businessman. Mabui didn't speak, but nodded quietly, indicating that she already knew. She lowered her eyelids again, no longer looking at the oppressive Haruki, waiting for the next order. Haruki thought slightly, obviously taking longer than before. He looked at Shinji Hira and said, You will handle the matters of Cloud Shinobi Village Anbu. Yes. Hei Shinji nodded. He has followed Haruki for a long time and knows the meaning of his words. Incorporate and transform Anbu, and replace it with Konoha's. At the same time, collect confidential documents or ninjutsu from Cloud Shinobi Village. The sudden death of 4th Raikage and Darui's hasty escape mean that Cloud Shinobi Village retains all precious things. As one of the 5 great forbearance villages, it is naturally rich. Will greatly increase Konoha's strength. Fugaku and Hiyashi, you will help. Haruki thought for a while, then added. 2 families can make up for the shortcomings of Anbu and avoid missing any good things. The last thing, the ninjas of Cloud Shinobi Village and Konoha Village are not allowed to engage in private fights. Once discovered, they will be punished severely. Haruki looked serious. He knew that there were irreconcilable conflicts between the two villages, and conflicts would inevitably erupt in the early stages. All he has to do is to reduce the possibility of fighting. Hearing his tone, Ma Bui couldn't help but nodded. What a ninja who can directly destroy the entire Cloud Shinobi village said is naturally impossible to be fake. In fact, she suspected that Haruki left them just to fill the population. Sakumo, you are temporarily in charge of Cloud Shinobi village. Haruki turned his head and looked at Hitaki. Sakumo, I'll go back to Konoha and call the ninja I need. Okay. Hitaki nodded slightly, just leave it to me. Haruki was still very relieved of him. Even if Cloud Shinobi village wants to rebel, after losing Raikage and Tail Beast, high-end combat power is completely vacant and there is no chance at all. He left the village on the top of the cloud and came to the Hokage building. Tsunade has not returned yet, and Orochimaru is still in charge. When he saw Haruki, he had solved the doubts he had met last time. After all, the ninja world is very lively at the moment. At the same time that Konoha won the victory, various countries and Shinobu village also jumped out one after another. Rosa from Tsunade arrived at Konoha a few days ago and has been waiting to see you. Orochimaru spoke and said his first words. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 215 Kun Master of the Kingdom of Wind, 2 in 1. Had it not been for Orochimaru to mention Rasa, Haruki would have forgotten about Tsunade. As expected, he came because of the words of the name of the Wind Kingdom. Although most ninjas have no political or economic acumen due to educational reasons, 3rd Hokage and Rosha are not really stupid, it is clear who brings greater benefits. Previously, Tsunade was poor, largely because the country of the wind received too little assistance. The fundamental reason is that the country of wind is also relatively poor. The desert environment made them helpless. But Haruki and Konoha are different. They help them develop a unique desert economy without an unequal treaty. In terms of ninjas' worldview, this is simply a miracle. Beyond their cognition, the originally useless desert turned out to be all resources and money. There is one thing to say. In the past few years, 3rd Hokage and Luo Sha have lamented more than once that their ancestors may have lived on dogs, but no one even noticed it. The only one who has used the desert is Luo Sha, but he also turned into a gold miner because of his blood inheritance and made some hard money. I will see him later. Haruki was not in a hurry, anyway. Luo Sha waited for a few days and didn't care about waiting for a while. Lei no Kuni and Cloud Shinobi village are now owned by Konoha, but we don't have enough manpower. I plan to transform Cloud Shinobi village first. What are you going to do? Orochimaru asked lukewarmly when he heard the words. Haruki explained to him several things he had said in Cloud Shinobi village. Summarized in 2 words. VIPs, Orochimaru thought slightly. The manpower left in the solid wood leaves is not too much. Had it not been for Haruki in the past few years, many general universities have been established to recruit civilians. Otherwise, ninja alone is definitely not enough. And the focus of ninja learning is different from ordinary people, and more emphasis on fighting and killing. Let Oki-kai lead someone over. Seeing that he was a little embarrassed, Haruki suddenly proposed, although we occupy Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village, people's thoughts cannot be occupied temporarily, and Oki-kai is good at propaganda, and may be able to reverse their impression. Good. Now that Haruki explained, Orochimaru stopped thinking. He didn't really like these things. Oshima Yoshihide Association held a project bidding meeting in the Country of Rain to contract for the reconstruction of the Country of Rain, especially transportation. Haruki thought of the Country of Rain again, and simply explained together, this matter requires you to control 1 or 2. A new country means a new market, but there is no need to plunder too much. The 2 sides can cooperate and benefit from each other. Orochimaru is used to Haruki's dark-bellied and fair character. But speaking of the Land of Rain, he asked, since the war in the Land of Rain is over, Tsunade should be back, right? He had thought of being Hokage before, but after working as an agent for a few days, he found that this kind of social animal life was not suitable for him. In addition, it was wartime, 24 hours a day, more than half of the time was spent on official business. Whoever loves this kind of Hokage will do it, so he can't wait any longer, hoping that Tsunade will come back to replace him. Haruki couldn't help but smile. He suddenly remembered a sentence from his previous life, if you feel that life is not fun, go to work as a social animal. At that time you will know that everything is fun except going to work. I expect to be back soon. Haruki thought for a while, then guessed. She stayed in the Country of Rain and it didn't matter much. Probably because Akatsuki's organization was thriving and needed her guidance, which wasted time. If you are in a hurry, you can urge her. I will. Orochimaru accepted his suggestion unceremoniously. Haruki obviously realized his impatience. In fact, in normal times, Hokage is not so busy. After all, there is an executive department as an auxiliary to Hokage, who can handle most of the chores. But now almost all members of the executive department are outside. Things will inevitably fall on Orochimaru's head. In addition, there is one more thing. Orochimaru picked up a scroll and said, "According to your instructions, the Joint Survey Department of the Ministry of Agriculture has measured the area of arable land in the Land of Fire, and recovered all the land occupied by the nobles and attributed it to Konoha." Quote. Then he frowned and asked in comprehension. "What are we doing with so much farmland? You don't want the ninja to farm, right?" "Why not?" Haruki replied. "You should know that many people are genin all their lives. It is difficult to get rich by task alone, but it is enough to be engaged in agriculture." "Your thoughts are really strange." Orochimaru's thinking still tends to be a traditional ninja, but Haruki is right. But the whole country of fire, even ninjas can't be busy, right? He looked at the area in the intelligence, which accounted for almost 1/3 of the Land of Fire. Of course it is impossible for Konoha to bear all of it. Haruki shook his head. Most of the ninja countries are agricultural countries, except for forests, mountains, etc. They can all be regarded as cultivated land. I plan to lease the cultivated land to them in accordance with the population of the country of fire by contracting. Orochimaru was slightly startled when he heard the words, and he couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. This seems to be no different from the previous nobles. As landowners, they also let civilians or slaves cultivate. There is a big difference. It is said to be rented to them, but there will be no rent. We only charge a small amount of tax. Haruki explained. In fact, it is far more than that. He will then let the Ministry of Agriculture cultivate new varieties and teach the cultivation methods to civilians. In this way, the output will be greatly increased. The remaining farmland will be handed over to the ninja. In Haruki's eyes, chakra is equivalent to a tractor from a previous life. Intensive production can be achieved in accordance with local conditions, and chakra can reduce manpower input. If Tsunade comes back, you ask her to hold a meeting of the policy department. The integration of Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village also needs to change the title, and Fire Country is no longer applicable. Haruki originally planned to wait until the matter was over before implementing it, but now he thinks it is better to make the decision early. I have been using Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village, which will leave some thoughts for some people. The role of unified names is not small. After leaving Hokage's office, Haruki met Luo Sha at the hotel specializing in reception of the outer village. "Master Haruki?" After opening the door, Luo Sha was obviously startled when he saw the sunny tree suddenly. But he reacted quickly and quickly stepped aside and asked him to come in. Originally, Luo Sha was very respectful towards Haruki, but now she has gone further, even a little humble. "Master Haruki, please." He put the teacup in both hands. At the same time, I was cursing the name of the country of wind in my heart. If this guy couldn't tell the situation, why is my fourth case cage in the future? The teacher asked me to come over because he wanted to apologize for the name of the Wind Nation. He said something that shouldn't be said. Luo Sha looked at Haruki with a calm face, with an extremely sincere attitude. Daimyo's words do not mean what Tsunade means. No matter when it is, Tsunade will always be Konoha's ally. This point will never change. Haruki took a sip of water. He believed that Luo Sha was telling the truth. After all, he is not so stupid as the name of the Wind Country. Only these aristocrats do not understand what Konoha's strength means now. What are you going to do with it? Haruki glanced at him and continued to ask. It is impossible to dismiss him with just one sentence. Luo Sha obviously understood. He took a deep breath and said, "Tsunade will support a big name who supports us." Haruki was slightly surprised. Yes, it's rare to see them have such courage. If there are in the original work, you don't need to be reduced to the point where Fengying gold rushes. Sure enough, a person is accustomed to a wealthy life, and let him go back to the past, he must not do it. This is the case with Tsunade today. Konoha gave them unimaginable income, and once someone hindered them, they were all enemies. Unless you encounter another thigh or backing, but in the entire ninja world, besides Konoha, who can keep them warm? Tsunade's approach reminded Haruki of a system in his previous life. When the two villages had a good relationship, he would not go to the Kingdom of Wind and Tsunade completely. Unless they completely offend Konoha. But a country of wind in the feudal era is not conducive to the economy. Losa, have you heard of the Kun Master system? Haruki put down the teacup, smiled, and asked, "No." Luo Sha shook her head. You Tsunade no longer need to rely on the assistance of the Wind Nation at all, and even say that your economy can surpass the Wind Nation in turn. Have you ever thought of controlling the entire Wind Nation? Haruki's whisper made Luo Sha stunned. They really haven't thought about it. The most daring behavior is to change a big name. But, we don't know how to govern the country at all. Luo Sha groaned. Controlling the land of the wind sounds wonderful. But the ninjas have been killing people since elementary school, and if they were to rule the country, it would only be a miasma. That's why I want to tell you about the Kun Master system. Haruki smiled and talked about the Kun Master system in the previous life. To put it simply, the Kun Master is nameless and merely a symbol. The actual power lies in the parliament, which governs the country. However, the situation in the Kingdom of Wind and Tsunade is slightly different. His suggestion is that Tsunade uses force and financial resources to control the council, and to control the entire Kingdom of Wind in disguise. Luo Sha's eyes widened. Is there such an operation? Then they Tsunade has become the supreme emperor? But, Luo Sha hesitated. If they use force, their Tsunade can do this naturally. It's just that his thinking still doesn't feel right. Will it arouse the dissatisfaction of the nobles? Will not. Haruki shook his head. I ask you, who has the most power in the Kingdom of Wind? Naturally is the name. And what is the purpose of the parliamentary system? Override the big name and distribute power to the nobles. Do you think they will be dissatisfied? Luo Sha suddenly realized. I am afraid that the nobles will not only not be dissatisfied, but will give their support. My concern is that they won't let us control them behind the scenes. This affirmation, no one wants to be controlled. That, why? They don't want to. Do you intend to be a country of short winds? Haruki chuckled and said, Rosa, you are the one who wants to be a wind shadow. Be bold. If you promote this during your tenure, you will surpass your teacher and become the only one in history. Fengying, also the most powerful Fengying, is destined to be included in the annals of Tsunade's history. Luo Sha's breathing started quickly. Haruki's words literally penetrated into his heart. His biggest dream is to become the greatest Fengying. But his strength is worse than third Kazekage. The strongest wind shadow is not expected, but Haruki makes a lot of sense. As long as he controls the Kingdom of Wind, he can bring an unprecedented new situation to Tsunade. The whispers of the devil. The expression on Luosha's face changed, and finally gritted her teeth and said, Please also Chingshu-sama to help me. Haruki looked at him a few times and said, I write a letter, and you will bring it to your teacher. He summoning took out the storage scroll, took out the paper and pen, folded it in a letter a few minutes later and handed it to Luosha. Thank you, Haruki-sama. Although Luo Sha wanted to know the content of the letter, she did not dare to read it without consent, so she could only put away her curiosity. The matter is over. Haruki sent Luosha away and called Oki Kai. You follow me to Cloud Shinobi Village for a period of publicity. At the same time, ask the Ministry of Education to select 10 teachers. He plans to teach 300 Cloud Shinobi Village Jonin first, and then consider other children. Okay. As always, Damazi did things without sloppiness. In less than 10 minutes, he assembled a team of 30 people. Flying Thunder God technique is launched. Haruki led 30 Konoha Shinobi people to Cloud Shinobi Village. After greeted Hitaki Tsukumo first, he went straight to the ninja school. The ninja school in Cloud Shinobi Village is almost the same as Konoha's ninja school 7 years ago. When Haruki walked around, there was a feeling of revisiting the old place, nostalgic. The long-awaited Nara Shikaro greeted him. There's a young man behind him. He looks similar to him, but it is Naraluku, his son, who is 23 years old this year. Master Haruki. Nara Shikaro had a calm face and reported, the original teacher of the ninja school has not been changed for the time being, but the textbook has been consistent with Konoha's. As for the 300 Jonin classes you mentioned, we plan to build a new teaching building. Don't be so troublesome. Haruki made a seal on his hands, and immediately shot on the ground, countless vines emerged, and a complex wooden building was formed after a while. Nara Shika Lang blinked. Just a moment. A building rose from the ground. Is wood style so versatile? Thinking of this, as the head of the Human Resources Department, he can't help but feel a little excited. With Haruki-sama, we must be able to renovate Cloud Shinobi Village soon. Haruki opened his mouth. No, what do you take me for? I am not a carpenter or a contractor, you got my idea? It is really difficult to find such workers in Cloud Shinobi Village in a short time. With Haruki-sama, you can save a lot of labor costs and a lot of time. Nara Shikaro finally noticed Haruki's face and said hesitantly, if you don't want to, just assume I didn't say it. Fine. Haruki smiled, since you say that, I am definitely willing to cooperate with you. It seems a bit cold for some reason, Nara Shika Lang thought. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 216 A Day in Azabui, 2-in-1, as the center and symbol of Cloud Shinobi Village, Reikage Building. Today ushered in the final end. The word thunder on the heights was replaced with the word fire, and the architectural style was also changed. It is almost equivalent to another Hokage building. At the same time, the bulletin board in front of the building was originally the simplest text poster. After a few days of hard work, Damazi and others installed an electronic screen. According to Haruki's instructions, the rolling broadcast in the morning is exactly the newly formed department and its responsibilities. In the afternoon, the recruitment of personnel and the selection of the responsible person of the broadcasting department are based on examinations, supplemented by strength and special monthly fixes. Author's remuneration mechanism. At the same time, staff were arranged to set up a book stand in front of the publicity column and give free exam materials. If you don't understand, you can go to the ninja school to ask. There is no doubt that the content of the promotion caused a huge sensation in Cloud Shinobi Village. Although many people cannot accept Konoha, the electronic screen makes it very clear that everyone has a chance to compete. In other words, the old system has been broken, and they will be the new rulers. Especially those ninjas who have never held important positions due to various factors. Cloud Shinobi Village, which is united again, still has cracks when facing power. Azabui sighed. Haruki's method is open and effective. After losing Raikage, Cloud Shinobi Village has lost its backbone after all. She picked up a book from the book stand and walked through the crowd towards the ninja school. The houses on both sides of the road changed their style overnight. I heard that Haruki used wood style to create the effect. Compared with the original building, it is almost 4 or 5 times taller, and the area is also enlarged. It's really a miracle. Mabu couldn't help but sigh. Housing is the most important factor for a ninja. Who doesn't like to own a big house of their own? And it's free. This alone has greatly changed the impression of Haruki among the ninjas and residents at the lower level of Cloud Shinobi Village. In addition, the reform of the school, the establishment of the Chamber of Commerce, the change of remuneration, and so on. Maybe it has little effect on Jonin, but what about others? Haruki caught the group of people they once thought to be cannon fodder, and created enough posts for them to play their due role. Rich and capable. Master Raikage, we really can't play. With a pessimistic mood about the future, Asabu Yi came to the ninja school. The same new teaching building erected from the ground. Engraved with the words, Academy of Will on Fire, outside. Mabui looked up for a while. Konoha Village has the will of fire, and Cloud Shinobi Village has the will of thunder. But Haruki wouldn't be naive to think that by giving them lessons, he would be able to change his beliefs. This idea is too whimsical. Mabui shook his head, and came to the first floor according to the notice received yesterday. According to Haruki's classification, there are 30 people in a class, for a total of 10 classes. She was assigned to the first class. Mabui glanced at the classroom, it was more than half full, and she randomly found a seat. Because there was still time, she opened the books in her hands. The Will of Fire: The History of the People, Volume 1. The title of the book is a little bit difficult to understand. Does the Will of Fire have anything to do with the people? Mabui frowned and opened the book with doubts. After reading it for a while, he was a little surprised. This seems very different from what she imagined. She thought it was praising Konoha and Hokage, and advocating to make contributions to Konoha's sacrifice. But it didn't mention it. Instead, he skipped the ninja and told the story of the people. At this moment, Haruki entered the classroom. He knocked on the blackboard and said, I will be your teacher in the first class. Azabuye was startled slightly. It turned out that Haruki taught by himself. It is difficult for her to imagine that a strongest person in the ninja world would teach them a lesson. Aren't all the teachers in the ninja school genin or chunin? In her impression, only ninjas who are not strong would choose to become a teacher. Maybe it's because of their attention to Cloud Shinobi Village Jonin. Mabui could only think of this one reason. Today, our textbooks must have been obtained by everyone, so I won't say more. From now on, our first lesson, the people are the creators of history. That's weird. That's weird. Like other Cloud Shinobi Village Jonin, Mabui felt strange as he listened. You are the new ninja god, why not talk about the role of a ninja? A lesson is over. Mabui felt a little confused in his head. It's not that I didn't understand it, but it was difficult to understand. Today's theory class ends here, and next is the practical class. After returning to his senses, Azabuye was startled when he heard what Haruki said on the stage. Do they really go to school as children? Does the practice class allow a group of Jonin to practice chakra refinement? Or should they be friendly to each other? Next I will start grouping. Azabuye squinted his eyes slightly, seeming to be grouped according to chakra attributes. Since it is Cloud Shinobi Village, most of the ninjas are thunder. As for the reason for this division, she didn't quite understand. When it was her turn, she turned out to be a single group. After finishing the grouping, Haruki called many Konoha Shinobi. Thunder-type ninjas follow to the Ministry of Energy, and Soil-type ninjas go to the Ministry of Transportation. Azabuye, you come with me. Hearing his name, Mabui got up and came to Haruki. She glanced at her colleagues who had left, thinking about what they are going to do. Haruki didn't elaborate, he left the classroom and walked in a certain direction. Mabui followed him and finally understood what her colleague had done. The Earth Ninja from the previous class is now working with Konoha's ninja to transform the street. At the same time, she noticed a ninja standing next to Konoha with a notebook in her hand, seeming to record their performance. Mabui couldn't help being curious, and asked, what does that mean? Haruki glanced at it and said, the scoreboard given to you will record your performance through a variety of indicators. After the end, the ninja with a high score will have more opportunities and greater opportunities, that power. Mabui was stunned, they really didn't know this. It was not stated in advance. She thought for a while, and then asked, then what happens if the score is very low? A low score means that you didn't take the class seriously. How do you think we will deal with such a person? Quote. Azabuye's heart shook and fell silent. This may be a question for which the answer is known without an answer. She made up her mind that she must have a talk with them in the evening. Haruki saw her expression and smiled. He didn't intend to hide it. Let Mabui say it, and it will be easier for them to accept it. As for the final effect, as long as they are not brainwashed by the so-called Will of Thunder, and there is a complete set of incentive and punishment mechanisms under the premise of combining theory and practice, Haruki believes that they will unknowingly agree and implement Konoha's rules and regulations. Their Jonin may be more difficult, but Genin are residents at the bottom, facing a better future. Will they still indulge in the Cloud Shinobi village of the past? Arrive. Haruki looked at the commercial street he chose. After receiving Cloud Shinobi village, they divided the Cloud Shinobi village according to Konoha's overall plan. I call it Akihabara. Haruki continued to use the name Konoha, but it's very desolate now, and her task is to do express delivery. Express delivery? Mabui heard extremely strange words. It's to use your heavenly delivery technique to transfer items. Haruki didn't give much explanation. I see. Although Mabui felt that Ching Shu was a little too much, after all, she knew that Flying Thunder God technique was far more powerful than her Tiansong technique. After a while, Hira Shinji's Anbu moved a lot of things. Azabui glanced around, his face blackened involuntarily. It's all their precious ninjutsu and some special treasures from Cloud Shinobi village. This group of thieves. She resisted the urge to curse, and only sighed. This is the situation. To make matters worse, she has to personally deliver these things. Mabui, your heavenly delivery technique, can you send items to any place? Can the reverse be true? Haruki nodded at Shinji Era as a greeting. Reverse Tiansong technique, I won't. Mabui shook his head and said, in that case, Shinji Hira, you ask the Flying Thunder God team to send her back to Konoha. Ching Shu got the expected answer. After all, the reverse Tiansong technique was not mentioned in the original work, but it didn't matter. In the past few years, he asked Shinji Hira to find someone to learn Flying Thunder God technique. Although it is not learned by a single player, it can be used in a multiplayer combination. Although the two villages are far apart, it consumes a lot of chakra. But after all, only one person was sent back to Konoha. Ping Shinji nodded in response. Azabui, let's get started, send these things to Konoha first. Haruki took out a small notebook and prepared to record her performance. Mabui took a deep breath, she had no right to refuse. I need a specific location, in front of the Hokage building. Haruki said without hesitation. There is a plaza in front of the reconstructed Hokage building, which is used by the residents of Konoha to watch publicity boards, etc. or hold conventions. But considering that Mabui had never been to Konoha, he took out a very detailed map. Azabui took a closer look, and after determining the location, he asked Shinji Hira to gather the materials that he found. As her hands were sealed, chakra opened up the distant space, and all the supplies disappeared in a burst of blue light. Haruki nodded in satisfaction. The result was similar to what he expected, very suitable for express delivery. Konoha. Orochimaru glanced at the time. He received a message from Haruki saying that he was waiting in the square in front of the Hokage building at 11 o'clock in the morning. Although no specific matter was stated, Orochimaru's body flicker technique disappeared in the office out of trust in him. Before he landed, he was hit by strong winds, silent and unexpected. Orochimaru quickly avoided. Immediately various things appeared, occupying the position where he had just stood. Orochimaru's mouth twitched. If it weren't for chakra, he thought Haruki couldn't understand him and would attack him. After a while, he was a little surprised. A lot of ninjutsu and secret techniques that have never been seen before. Is this robbing Cloud Shinobi village? Orochimaru was not polite, putting away all the ninjutsu and mystery, and preparing to return it to Konoha after learning. As for other things, he took a look and took a few items of interest. A wave of fluctuations. Azabui showed his body. She saw Orochimaru rummaging through the boxes and was stunned. Thief? But she quickly recognized Orochimaru. Orochimaru's looks and temperament are really unique in the ninja world. She took out the scroll and said, Master Haruki gave it to you. Orochimaru glanced at her. The dark skin proved to be Cloud Shinobi village. The ninjutsu just now should be Flying Thunder God technique. He opened the scroll, scanned it, and said coldly, you wait. A few minutes later, someone brought in a lot of electronic equipment. Azabui was a little puzzled. Among them, the one she recognized was a computer. But unlike their Cloud Shinobi village computer, it looks more upscale. Not a bulky man, but a thin electronic screen. Mabui did not ask, and started transportation. She thought there was only this batch, but did not expect batch after batch. Until her chakra was exhausted, she was able to rest. At this time, a red-haired woman walked over, holding two cute foxes. Xiaoyang. In Azabui's unclear gaze, the fox known as Xiaoyang raised his paw reluctantly. A ball of chakra the size of a nail was sent into her body. Her dried chakra immediately filled up. Not only filled up, but also spilled out, making her very uncomfortable. As a result, he had to get up immediately, use the Tiansong technique, and release it. But the body can stand it, but the spirit can't stand it either. At this moment, another fox called Xiaoyan sent her a gloomy chakra. Her spirit immediately recovered. Azabui looked like he had seen a ghost. Until late at night, her work ended. If it weren't for being in the square, she would definitely want to just fall to sleep. His whole body didn't even want to move a little finger. Kushina arrived in time. She seemed bored in the middle, so she dropped 2 9-tails and left by herself. This sister, what's your name? Kushina took her hand and asked for the first time. She didn't interrupt her work before. After all, Mr. Haruki ordered it. Mabui. Are you a ninja from Cloud Shinobi Village? I will take you to dinner. After Kushina understood the basic situation, she stopped asking. The main reason was that she didn't know what was going on with Mabui. Sichuan Shu Flavor Restaurant? Mabui glanced at the restaurant's name curiously. Yes, it's delicious. This is Haruki's hometown cuisine, and the chef in it is the teacher's true biography. Kushina held 2 nine-tails beside her and said. Azabui shook slightly. Is she a student of Haruki? And how did Haruki become a chef again? Walk around, don't waste time. Yin Nine-Tails wiped the saliva from the corner of her mouth, and said, when I finish eating, I have to teach you the business of express delivery. Azabui was stunned. A fox teaches me? Why is it so magical? In just one day, she clearly felt the difference in Konoha. I'll go order first. Kushina swallowed, stuffed the 2 foxes into Mabui's hands, and ran into the kitchen. She has long been familiar with everything here. After Haruki became Hokage's assistant, he didn't have much time to cook. So this restaurant is their gathering place. Go, woman. Yang Nine-Tails urged impatiently. Mabui resisted the urge to throw away the 2 arrogant foxes and walked into the restaurant. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 217 Sha Zhiguo, 2 in 1, Azabui's face was flushed, and the breath that he exhaled turned into smoke. Hot. The tongue's taste buds seemed to have only this feeling left. But inexplicably cool. Sweat seeped from the surface of her skin and wetted her thin clothes. Water stains from the east to the west, but it's really delicious. Although it is the first time to eat a large table of dishes called Sichuan cuisine, she already thinks it may be the best food she has ever eaten in her life. She squinted her eyes and gasped softly. He glanced at the opposite Kushina and the 2 foxes. To her surprise, the little fox had a surprisingly large appetite. Together, she and Kushina are not as good as one of the foxes. Mabui began to wonder what kind of beast the 2 foxes were. After eating food that was several times larger than them, it turned out to be the same as not eating it. Mabui, are you full? Kushina raised her head and saw that she stopped the chopsticks in her hand. Her eyes seemed to be fixed on 2 nine-tails. She glanced down, and the 2 nine-tails' cheeks bulged like 2 big meat buns, very cute. I'm full, thank you for the hospitality. A smile appeared on Mabui's face and said sincerely. After a busy day, I can eat such a delicious dinner, not in vain for so long. But then she was wary in her heart. Cannot be eroded by the decaying life of Konoha. Fine. Kushina handed her a piece of watermelon and ate it herself for a while. After stopping, there are only 2 nine-tails left to eat. She knew this was far from enough, but she couldn't get used to them either. In a moment, all the plates on the table were licked clean. Linen twitched at the corner of his mouth. Smooth with bright colors. There is no need to wash it anymore. Is this the reincarnation of a starved ghost? A thought flashed through Mabui's mind, and then remembering his own affairs, and asked, should I go back to Cloud Shinobi Village now? Kushina shook her head and said, there are still some things that haven't been delivered, so you don't need to hurry back. Let's rest here for one night and go back tomorrow. Okay. Mabui did not decline. Although he originally wanted to notify other colleagues at night that there would be a score, he was not so urgent. Where shall I rest tonight? Well, it's at the Kirito theme hotel next door. Kushina left her seat, picked up 2 nine-tails, and led the way. Asabui pressed down the doubt about who Kirito was, followed her, and soon saw Kirito. In the room. She looked at the waiting pillows on the bed, the various figures, posters, and books on the walls, counters, and televisions, and fell into deep thought. What is this? If you want to understand, you can read novels. Kushina noticed the confusion on her face and pointed to the dozen or so volumes of sword art online. Azabui nodded. After seeing her leave, he picked up the novel. The night passed quietly. Azabui glanced at the alarm clock on the wall subconsciously. The hour and second hands seemed to be in the shape of 2 swords. 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning? She rubbed her eyes. Unconsciously watched it all night. To this day, I still have some ideas. Damn it. Mabui hated herself somewhat. Obviously I hate Konoha, but how could this be? She hesitated to read the novel. Can you take them away? She was unwilling to read it before she finished it. Mabui gritted his teeth and loaded them directly into the storage reel. Have you woken up? Kushina's voice came from outside the door. Mabui was taken aback. She patted her chest, let out a breath, and quickly got up and opened the door. You don't seem to be in good spirits. Kushina looked at her expression, looking tired because she hadn't slept all night. Fine. Azabui smiled and said, I will continue to do the work I didn't finish yesterday. Go later. Kushina shook her head, with a little excitement on her face. Master Hokage is back, and a meeting of the policy department is about to be held, and this time it is for external parties. Would you like to see it? Azabui listened to the strange department. After thinking about it, there was no rejection. After all, she was also curious, what was Konoha's meeting like? Besides, Kushina treated her well. Follow me. Kushina grabbed her hand and headed to the Hokage building. Most of the villagers have gathered in front of the square. Azabuye quickly skipped and looked at the front group of people. Although Haruki took nearly 1/3 of the ninjas, the remaining ninjas, especially the members of the policy department, were all powerful. Azabuye trembled in his heart. As the secretary of Hokage, she has a deep understanding of the strength of Cloud Shinobi Village. But she suddenly discovered that as far as the ninjas in the square are concerned, none of them can compare to Cloud Shinobi Village. In other words, even if Haruki and others are excluded, the strength of Konoha Village is almost twice that of them. Mabu couldn't help being a little discouraged. Cloud Shinobi Village is too proud. Did not know the strength of Konoha Village at all. No, it should be said that they thought they could win Tsunade with the Chunin exam. But I didn't expect it to be a complete defeat since then, and I haven't won a game. Mabui, let's go to the front seat. Kushina pulled her out of the crowd. As Haruki's apprentice, she naturally has a position in the policy department. Policy departments will have such public meetings. Kushina moved a wooden chair for Mabui, let her sit next to her, and explained, generally speaking, if we have something, we need to submit our own bills and submit them to the policy department for discussion and voting. If more than half of them agree, it can be implemented. Azabuye nodded silently. She felt that this system seemed to be an enlarged version of the Jonin Convention. But is it really necessary to divide power between genin and ordinary residents? She remembered the class at Haruki again yesterday. Konoha seems to be very different from the Konoha she sees in the materials. And the source of all changes was after Tsunade became Hokage. While she was waiting, 4th Hokage Tsunade appeared. Azabuye's first reaction was as big as the legend. She had never seen Tsunade before. Hey, behind Hokage-sama are Yahiko and Nagato brothers. Kushina noticed the two familiar figures. During her previous mission, she had been to the country of rain. However, Nagato and Yahiko came to Konoha for the first time. She remembered that the two of them didn't like Konoha very much, and she didn't know why they showed up with Tsunade this time. Soon Tsunade seemed to see her and smiled. Kushina also waved quickly. Then she saw Tsunade say a word to Yahiko and Nagato. Two people walked in front of her. Master Tsunade, let us sit with you. Yahiko explained. His gaze swept across Mabui next to him. This skin color does not seem to be Konoha, okay. Kushina immediately brought in two wooden chairs. After sitting down, she introduced Mabui and the two of them. Cloud Shinobi Village Ninja, Secretary of 4th Hokage, Azabuye. These two are the apprentices of Lord Jiraiya, the leaders of Akatsuki's organization, Yahiko and Nagato. After listening to the three people, they were all taken aback, and they were all surprised. Yahiko and Nagato knew that Cloud Shinobi Village had been destroyed, but they didn't expect Hokage's secretary to appear in Konoha. And Mabui was surprised that the famous Akatsuki leader was actually Jiraiya's apprentice. After a few words of greeting, the four people stopped chatting and waited for the start of the meeting. Originally, Haruki only invited Nagato alone, but he forgot that before Yahiko died, Akatsuki was actually headed by Yahiko. His idealism for peace attracted a large number of members to join. And this is also Akatsuki's peace philosophy. Realize peace through communication and help between people. This idea is essentially similar to Senju Hashirama's peace. It's all based on personal strength, some take it for granted. Once dead, there will be no deterrence, and contradictions will erupt in the end. After learning that Nagato was going to Konoha Village, Yahiko also applied to follow. Naturally Tsunade would not refuse. The reason Yahiko wanted to come was to know why Konoha had become so strong in just 7 years, almost crushing Cloud Shinobi Village and winning. He and Nagato arrived at dusk yesterday. After eating, the two wandered around Konoha and saw scenery that was completely invisible to the outside world. Everyone lives and works in peace and harmony, with a happy smile on his face. To them, who had experienced the war in the Kingdom of Rain for a long time, it seemed like a dream scene. Yahiko was particularly excited. His peace seems to be realized in Konoha. At least what he saw was this, so he made up his mind to live in Konoha for a while. Nagato has similar feelings to him. He had never understood why Haruki asked him to come to Konoha. But now I can understand a little bit. He thought of the supervisory department that Haruki said. Perhaps this is truly possible peace. After a few minutes, Tsunade glanced, and almost all the members of the policy department in Konoha were present. In addition, there are a lot of onlookers outside. She raised her hand. The square suddenly became quiet. In a few years, her prestige has reached ultimate. Most ninjas and civilians don't care how strong you are, they care about the benefits to them. Obviously, their tenure in Tsunade was quite satisfying. Compared to 3rd Hokage, the average level of wealth has almost doubled nearly 4 or 5 times. Don't Tsunade say anything fancy and bloody, they will take the initiative to support her and follow her. I think everyone may have heard of it. Tsunade smiled slightly, behaved elegantly, without losing Hokage's majesty. Haruki and Hitaki Tsukumo led Konoha's ninjas to capture Cloud Shinobi Village. Namikaze Minato and the Fire Country's army defeated the Thunder Country and occupied the metropolis. The square was silent for a second, and then a shocking sound erupted. Yeah. When Kushina heard Minato's name, she raised her right hand in excitement and dangled. Although she knew it before, she was still excited. After all, it was her boyfriend. The three people next to him were calm. Nagato and Yahiko already knew the news, but in the strict sense they had little to do with them, so they were relatively calm. Mabui is simply uncomfortable. Happiness is theirs, and I have nothing. She regretted why a Cloud Shinobi village ninja came to Konoha's meeting. It's a crime. Tsunade waited for a while, and when the cheers subsided, he raised his hand again. The square was quiet again, but the excitement in everyone's eyes was not halved. Tsunade understood them. Konoha has achieved such great results for the first time since the establishment of the village. Only her grandfather Senju Hashirama, who ended the troubled times, can surpass such an achievement. The first thing is that after the merger of the Country of Fire and the Country of Thunder, the old name is no longer suitable. After discussion by the executive department, a proposal was formed and handed over to the policy department. After a pause, Tsunade said, the new country is called Shinshia, or the Country of Summer. At the same time, Cloud Shinobi Village will be renamed Shinobi Village, and Raikage will no longer be installed, and Hokage will assist as the person in charge. Now all voting will begin. The discussion sounded immediately, but no one opposed it. The policy departments are all members of the Shah organization, so they naturally know the origin of this country's name. Besides, the original name is not so good. The 5 major countries are based on the attributes of chakra. As for Cloud Shinobi Village, there is nothing to say. Shinye Village means New Konoha. Cloud Shinobi Village, which was originally one of the 5 major villages, has become a subordinate of its own village. It's so cool, it can't be cooler, especially many ninjas who have hatred with Cloud Shinobi Village. The second thing, Shinshia and Shinye Village, there will be a lot of vacancies. According to the executive department, the job examination will be launched in a week, and everyone is eligible to take it. Because there are many positions, it's better than in the past. Konoha's departmental examinations were simple. After Tsunade finished speaking, the square cheered again. Some people even shouted, "Long live Hokage-sama," immediately formed a unified slogan. Since Konoha's reforms, it has become the desire of all residents to enter all major departments. Work 8 hours a day, weekends and weekends, 5 insurances and 1 housing fund, fixed monthly salary plus performance appraisal, year-end bonus. In addition, you can also go to pick up tasks. Moreover, the remuneration for the task is no longer divided, and all is given to the ninja who performs the task. It's heaven. However, the number of department positions is limited. Most people can't get in. Now the opportunity is here. As for Konoha's presence or not, it doesn't matter. The momentum is huge. Azabui felt like he was in jail. Yahiko feels completely different. He seemed to see the scene he wanted to see in his mind. Everyone gave a happy smile from the bottom of their hearts. Peace. This is what he thinks of peace. All people work together, instead of fighting each other and fighting to the death. This time Tsunade waited longer to calm everyone's excitement. The third thing is that the Ministry of Commerce will hold a project bidding meeting. The content is about the construction projects of New Summer and Rainy Country. If interested chambers of commerce can sign up. If you want to participate, you can also. The fourth thing. 3 hours passed. Mabui returned to work again. But the previous meeting gave her an extremely deep impression. She thought that Cloud Shinobi Village was the most united and the best atmosphere. However, Konoha's seems to be even better. She thought of the residents who could be called fanatical. This time they really made a big mistake at Cloud Shinobi Village. But unfortunately, there is no possibility of making up. If you fail completely. It took Mabui another hour to return the remaining supplies to Cloud Shinobi Village. Oh no, it should be called Shinobi Village now. With mixed feelings, she reached the reborn Cloud Shinobi Village through Flying Thunder God technique. Just one day. Tall buildings rise from the ground. Countless wires draw beautiful lights. The scrolling screen is playing various movies and novels. The main street has been widened 3 times, all the way to the Raikage building. Mabui could not recognize this building at all. The second volume of Shingo Liaoyuan ends. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 218, Auto-Generated Chapter Title, Street Diary, Summary of Volume 2. This volume was originally not that long, but I forgot to divide it in the middle. It is the sum of the contents of the second and third volumes originally envisaged. Reluctantly, it achieved my expected goal, but there are more questions than the first volume. There are 3 main problems. The first one is the question of rhythm. Starting from Chapter 70, the rhythm has been deviated. Too much daily, causing readers to drop a lot. After accelerating the pace, the outbound investigation approaching the shelves, and there was a meaningless plot. It's not that it's meaningless, it's just different from what you imagined. It was originally intended to write stories other than Konoha, and to bring some technical things. But during that time I wrote too fast, which led to irrigation. The plot of the second half of the war, I personally think it is still up to the standard. But there is too much fighting, and the rhythm is a bit too fast. The second is the character problem. The supporting role in the second volume was not outstanding for his own reasons. I originally wanted to write about the progress of Tsunade, Minato, Obito, Kakashi and others. But the expressiveness is insufficient, and some tool people. The biggest villain, Uchiha Madara, is also poorly portrayed. The third, invincible text. I found that I am not good at writing invincible essays. Because it is a fan, I dare not add too many original characters. As a result, the protagonist is too invincible and loses the fun of growing up. This can be regarded as a mistake I made before writing the article. Because it was too invincible, the original biggest selling point of farming also disappeared in this volume. In the next book, I should no longer write invincible articles. In addition to these three, there are many minor issues, which are not explained one by one. The third volume should be the last volume. Many big readers can also see that my book is not long. Unless it is a parallel world, it turns into a comprehensive comic. But this book does not have this setting, and maybe I will write it in the next book. I originally estimated it to be 1 million words, but now it seems that it may be shorter. But I promise to finish the book smoothly, no eunuch. Finish the story. The name of the third volume is the same as the world. Main content. The first one, about the construction of Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village, will write some farming content. The second, the 3 holy places of summoning beasts, involves immortals and longevity, as well as some theatrical plots, the dragon veins of Lulin, the treasure chest of bliss in Konoha Village and so on. The third is the development of Akatsuki. Obito recruits members and collects tail beasts to confuse Black Zetsu. Finally, in the case of betrayal, Black Zetsu was sealed to completely prevent Project Tsuki no Mi. The fourth is to conquer the land and water to establish a unified country. Fifth, Shisui, Itachi, Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata, etc. grew up. The sixth, possible plot of the Otsutsuki family. Seventh, Haruki and Tsunade get married, the finale. The contents of this volume are basically these 7 contents. Thank you readers for your rewards, recommendations, subscriptions and comments. At present, the grades of this book are all set at about 1000, so it can be regarded as just getting started. In short, thank you very much everyone. Finally, let's talk about deleting comments. I generally delete comments that have a serious impact on the perception of readers who have not subscribed. I am also a reader, and I know that seeing such comments greatly affects the reading experience. So it will be deleted. Just don't like to leave, there is no need to leave bad reviews. Everyone is working hard, so why bother to beat the workers? It's really not easy to write a novel on the street while you are at work. Be considerate of the author. I now have games, movies, TV, and going out to play, and all kinds of entertainment time have been cut by more than half. Quite tough. Thanks again everyone. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 218, the new member of the Akatsuki organization, 2 in 1. After the Konoha Policy Department meeting ended, related news spread immediately. Especially the titles of Shajiguo and Shinye Village. Let the whole ninja world be shocked. For the first time since records, the 5 big countries and the 5 big villages, such a giant, disappeared into the tide of history for the first time. Although they expected after Konoha occupied Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village, most people believed that they would still retain Thunder Country and Cloud Shinobi Village as vassals or puppets. Among them, the alliance between the land and water is the most alarmed. What was prepared was the fear of Iwagakure and Kirigakure. Iwagakure blended into the battle of Cloud Shinobi Village. On the other hand, Kirigakure took advantage of the fire and robbed him. He originally wanted to use the ninja sword to carry out a sneak attack. Although he was killed as soon as he went ashore, it was undeniable that he had forged an enemy with Konoha. Out of the consideration of growing momentum, the Tushui League has pulled the surrounding small countries and small ninja villages. Suddenly, there was quite a taste of the union of the shinobi world. When Izabui arrived at Shinye Village, Haruki picked up the scroll on the table and looked at it. After waiting for a while, Hitaki Tsukumo in front of him asked, "This so-called alliance is for us. What we need to do or warn them, lest they do some stupid things somehow." "You underestimated Onogi, he is not an impulsive ninja." Haruki shook his head and smiled, "Don't care about them. If they dare to do something, I admire them instead." If Onoki had a character who would rather die than surrender, he would not live until now after being beaten up by Uchiha Madara. Hitaki nodded. Now Konoha does have such self-confidence and is not afraid of any alliance. For the rest of the matter, you should settle down the names of Shajiguo and Shinye Village as soon as possible. Haruki put down the scroll, looked at Hitaki Tsukumo, and immediately changed his words. "No, this is to Oki Kai. I have another task for you. Iwagakure's 4,000 ninja captives are still in Konoha. I need a messenger to go with Onoki talk about the conditions. This ninja must have certain strength and status to represent Konoha." "Yes, let me go." Hitaki Tsukumo agreed to this task without hesitation. And he is indeed more suitable. If you send a ninja casually, you may be threatened or suppressed by Onogi and others. Although it will not be too much, but killing the prestige is a casual thing. In this case, it is not conducive to negotiation. Haruki picked up a notebook from the table and handed it to Hitaki Tsukumo. These are the approximate conditions. Hitaki glanced at it and frowned. Are the conditions too outrageous? I don't think Onoki would agree to it. The advantage lies with me, so I naturally want the lion to speak a lot. Haruki shrugged. Onobi will definitely not agree, and then we will renew the conditions. As long as the requirements are lower than the first version, he is more likely to agree. A great man once said that if you want to open the window, most people disagree, but if you lift the roof, they will agree. In the current situation, Konoha has the ability to lift the roof. Iwagakure had to agree. Hitaki Tsukumo is not stupid, and naturally understands what Haruki means. He flipped back again, and the conditions were obviously more reasonable. Those are the bottom line. As for the final talk, it depends on your ability. Haruki finally added, if it fails, you don't have to force it. Even if it's the bottom line, Konoha has a huge advantage. To him, Iwagakure was just an accident, a side benefit. Fishing some in advance counts. Anyway, after waiting for a few years, whether Iwagakure can exist is a question. I see. Hitaki nodded. Before leaving, he told Haruki about his return. After a while, Haruki came to the ninja school. As Azabuye is in Konoha, she has actually missed today's class. Who? Azabuye was taken aback suddenly. After seeing that it was Haruki, he breathed a sigh of relief, bowed slightly, and said, Master Haruki, I have finished my work for these 2 days on time. Yes, I have known your performance through Kushina. Azabuye raised her brows slightly. Sure enough, Kushina was here to monitor her, and of course she added chakra to her by the way. Well, your next job is the express delivery I told you yesterday. Haruki took her to Akihabara in New Leaf Village. Soon after Konoha's postal department was established, considering the situation, it became independent and established a postal company. Its main force is Nine Tails. Nine Tails has almost infinite chakra, capable of courier work for Konoha. Fast and good. It's free. However, the postal branch of Shinya Village cannot follow this model. It is very difficult to support it by Azabuye alone. So Haruki is going to set up a new model for it. Azabu built the internet with the electronic equipment that he sent in 2 days. Ninjas and residents of Shinya Village shop through the website. The merchant then delivers the goods to the postal company. In short, it is no different from online shopping in previous lives. The biggest difference lies in the means of transportation. The first is Mabui's Tiansong technique. The second is to hire a ninja. The third is the flying beast. Do you understand? After Haruki finished speaking, he looked at Azabuye. Azabuye was silent for a moment. It seems that she is not the same as other Jonin. Everyone else is a practical class. She has become a lifelong job. Is it because of my own heaven to send technique? Azabuye thought for a while. No, it should be because Haruki values this so-called postal company. Express delivery is indeed very convenient, but she can't see the significance of this? I see. Mabui replied. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. Although I don't understand the usefulness of what I have done, it is always right to follow his orders. Haruki smiled, and did not explain. Mabui entered the house. Her learning content today is computer control and familiarity with shopping websites. The residents of Shinya Village are not used to the existence of the internet. Naturally, there will be no business in the short term. Haruki leaves a clone, always scoring Azabuye. His body returned to the Rakage building. No, it should be called the New Leaf building now. After the expansion of the building, according to Konoha, various departments were established one after another. The original Cloud Shinobi Village Ninja was not expelled directly. It remains unchanged for the time being, but like the Jonin who are in class, they are always learning. Test every other time. If he fails, he will be expelled. The Anbu is slightly different. The Anbus in each Shinobu village are all trained killing tools. Very loyal, Haruki could not leave the original members. He handed it over to Shinji. It has now been completely replaced. Master Haruki. Shinji saw him and greeted him in time. How is it going? Haruki nodded at him as a greeting and returned to business. After completing the inventory of the Cloud Shinobi Village heritage, Anbu's work was transferred to nearby resources. Shinji Hira naturally knew what Haruki asked. He sorted out the language and said, Cloud Shinobi Village is located on the top of the mountain, with plenty of sunshine and thunder and lightning, which can be used as energy. Surrounded by mountains, wood, herbs, animals, water and other resources are good. In addition, 2 large iron ore veins were also discovered. Haruki was a little surprised. Mainly iron ore. The refined iron has a wide range of uses. It can be used whether it is a ninja or farm tool, even furniture, construction, etc. Konoha's current iron is mainly imported from Tsunade. Now that there are these 2 large iron ore veins, they must satisfy a lot of needs. Haruki thought for a while, planning to let the Hyuga and Uchiha clan take charge of one each. Of course it has to be divided into 5 to 5 with Konoha. On the one hand, they are rewarded for their merits and deeds. On the other hand, Haruki needs their manpower. Just relying on the original iron furnace or something, the efficiency is too low. Let the ninja use fire style to greatly increase the output. The population of Hyuga and Uchiha has increased a lot in recent years. It is obviously sufficient for mining and refining. Besides, this is also a kind of chakra practice. Using chakra to remove impurities and only retain iron is actually not a very simple matter. It is more difficult and effective than the practice of stepping on water and climbing trees. Haruki immediately called Uchiha Fugaku and Hyuga Hiyashi. After explaining, they agreed without hesitation. As the population increases, their economic pressure also increases. Remuneration for past tasks alone cannot be afforded. What's more, the big ninja clan must pay attention to pomp. There are naturally many places where money is needed. In the past few years, more of their income came from family businesses. Now they have added another money-making business, and they certainly want to. After the iron ore was settled, Haruki left Anbu and went to various departments for a round. Since it has just been established, it is extremely busy. Haruki didn't bother too much either. With Konoha's experience, he does not need his guidance. On the contrary, it may become more and more chaotic. So his remaining job is to teach and educate people. At the same moment, Uchiha Obito is also learning. Originally his teacher was Haruki. In all fairness, his teaching ability is very good. But compared to Uchiha Madara, it is a lot worse. Of course, Obito thinks it is mainly because of the same race. Uchiha Madara has deep knowledge of Sharingan and fire style. It completely crushed the Haruki. After all, he doesn't have Sharingan. Obito's study these days is worth the study of the past few months. The strength is greatly improved, especially after transplanting Senju Hashirama cells. He has obtained a lot of powerful pupil skills that he couldn't reach in the past. Some are taboos. In addition, there are various new cognitions about Sharingan. For example, Mangekyo Sharingan's use of the past can cause blindness. On top of this, there is Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. But the promotion method is too harsh, it's almost impossible. Obito put away his thoughts and glanced at the guy with his head half black and half white against the pitcher plant in the distance. It was only yesterday that he knew that white Zetsu and black Zetsu could be combined together. Among them, black Zetsu, according to Uchiha Madara, is his will. After he died, he would obey black Zetsu's instructions. Of course Uchiha Madara has not committed suicide yet. The reason why white Zetsu and black Zetsu are integrated is because they want to join the elite group of Akatsuki. Obito didn't know they could merge into one. It was originally intended to pull white Zetsu into Akatsuki's organization. After all, his ability to detect and sneak is the only one in the ninja world. But the addition of black Zetsu surprised him a bit. Things in the dark are always unpredictable. Black Zetsu turned to the bright spot, which was good for him to observe. As an undercover agent, Obito has a very important task, which is to find out the strength of Ju and Uchiha Madara. In the past few days, he knew that Uchiha Madara might commit suicide, so what was left was black Zetsu and white Zetsu. Master Madara. Obito watched Ju put on Akatsuki's clothes and stood up and said, Ju and I are going out to recruit members for Akatsuki's elite group. Do you have a goal? Uchiha Madara heard the words and looked up at him. Akatsuki's elite group belongs to Nagato and others in name, but it is actually controlled by him. Used to fight Konoha, and to assist Project Tasuki no Mi. So he rarely cares about it. There are already candidates. The first one is Darui from Cloud Shinobi Village. As the apprentice of Raikage, he has feuds against Konoha, but he knows that it is difficult for a person to avenge himself. It is him who joins Akatsuki. The best choice. Obito nodded and replied, I'm not sure about the rest for the time being. I need to contact them. However, White Zetsu has conducted investigations on them. Most of them have a bad character, but everyone is from Jonin. Elite, not bad in strength. Then you go. Uchiha Madara waved his hand. He is not worried about the safety of two people. Needless to say, the ninja who can catch him has not yet been born. Obito has Kamui, and he can't crack his pupil skills without knowing it. After the two bowed slightly, they left the dark underground base. Absolutely. Where is Darui now? Obito took out a spiral mask and put it on his face. His identity is very famous in a sense. Need to cover up one or two. And according to Uchiha Madara's plan, he has to play his identity later. In the country of fire, Ju replied, it's bold. Obito was a little surprised. He didn't expect to arrive at Rui after leaving the land of thunder. Instead of traveling far away, he came to the land of fire. Although the approach is bold, it is very clever. If there is no end, he would have to work hard to find Darui. At least he won't go to the land of fire to search for it in the first place. Let's go. Obito and Ju disappeared on the bridge. Heading south all the way, quickly stepped into the territory of the country of fire. On a mountain peak on the border, Obito saw the tent where Darui and others were. It is perfectly covered in dense forests. If you don't pay attention, you will miss it. Darui's identity in the land of fire is exactly the bandit. In fact, his approach is somewhat similar to the Akatsuki organization. Establish a force that belongs to him and stir up trouble in the country of fire. Obito and Ju did not hide their traces and fell from the sky and were immediately spotted by the guards. Stop. The bandit is actually the guard of Cloud Shinobi, watching the two men very vigilantly. Uniform clothes. But it's not a ninja suit. They have some doubts, but they didn't do it directly. We are members of the Akatsuki organization, come to see your leader. Obito said calmly. Akatsuki? If ordinary bandits would naturally not have heard of it. But as ninjas who fled with Darui, their strength and intelligence capabilities are not bad. Akatsuki defeated Hanzo and became the new ruler of Cloud Shinobi Village. They are aware, but just because I knew it, I felt confused. Why did Akatsuki come here, unless Darui's identity is revealed? Just from this Akatsuki's clothes, one can see one or two things. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 219 Uchiha White, 2-in-1. The atmosphere is a bit solemn. The four guards surrounding Obito and Ju looked at each other. Ordinary bandits are naturally not worthy of the Akatsuki organization, but what if it is Darui? And Akatsuki defeated Hanzo, of which Konoha contributed a lot. In other words, Akatsuki has a very good relationship with Konoha. Now suddenly appeared in front of them. I'm afraid I want to borrow flowers to offer Buddha. Give them to Konoha. Take it easy. Obito noticed the change in their expressions and said softly, we are not here to trouble, but to discuss business. Talking about business? The four guards were a little confused. They really can't imagine any business to talk about. Please wait. Cloud Shinobi in the middle put away the weapon in his hand and turned to enter the wooden house. After a while, Darui opened the door. When he noticed the dress and appearance of the two people, he frowned slightly. He did not remember that Akatsuki had such two-number ninjas. One was wearing a spiral mask, the other was wearing a pitcher plant, and his head was half black and half white. Darui thought he was knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a weird ninja. Especially absolutely. Is one black and one white paint? And this Nepenthes is a decoration. Who are you? Darui walked to Obito Kazuki with a look of alert. I know the Akatsuki organization, and you are not a member of the Akatsuki organization. It's normal that you haven't seen us. The two of us are new members. Obito raised his hand, revealing Akatsuki's ring with the word Jade on it. The original owner of the Jade ring in the original work was Sasori of Akasago, and was replaced by Obito later. But now it is almost impossible for Sasori to join Akatsuki. It doesn't prove anything. Darui shook his head. As the heir to the line of Raikage, he is familiar with Embu's set. It is easy to copy the identity. If you don't believe me, you can follow us back to the organization. Obito said lightly, our purpose of coming this time is to let you join the Akatsuki organization. What are you kidding? I refuse. Darui didn't even think about it, so he answered immediately. He symbolizes the last Cloud Shinobi Village ninja. Even if Cloud Shinobi Village is wiped out by Konoha, it is impossible for him to join other organizations. Otherwise, how can you explain to the dead Raikage? GG, disobedient child, let's have a fight first. Absolutely, it was White Zetsu's voice to be precise. Darui and others immediately assumed a fighting stance. Obito shook his head. It's not that White Zetsu's words are problematic, but that Darui is overwhelming. Darui, you can only rely on us if you want revenge. He raised a finger, you are too weak. Darui's face was hard to look at when he heard this. A ninja who didn't know where he came from said he was weak. Although Cloud Shinobi Village is destroyed, the Raikage line does not allow anyone to take it lightly. Also at this moment, his body suddenly shook, spin. The scenery in my eyes is spinning. After a while, he couldn't move. All the Cloud Shinobi behind him were restrained in place. Something seemed to fix their bodies. Illusion? Darui showed a look of astonishment. That finger just now. Damn it, but he couldn't figure out how to have such a powerful illusion. Actually even Jonin can be recruited in an instant. Obito put his fingers away. A translucent Uzumaki slowly appeared to his right. In Darui's sluggish gaze, he drew out a short sword. I once learned a phrase, sitting on a well and watching the sky, meaning that the frog at the bottom of the well looks out at the sky, thinking that the sky has its own well head as big. Obito's tone was flat. He walked up to Rui and said, you are the frog. Darui opened his mouth. He has nothing to say. Before he knew Haruki, he thought Raikage was the strongest in the ninja world. But he thought this was just an example. However, the mysterious ninja gave him a blow. You don't have much time to think about it. Obito lifted short sword and put it on his neck. You and we share the same enemy, Konoha. Darui was stunned. Even the cold blade is ignored. Didn't Konoha just help your Akatsuki organization? How could it be your enemy? It's just borrowing a knife to kill someone. You can't even think of it, and Konoha can't even think of it. Obito sneered and said, our leader's parents were killed by Konoha. How can we become allies with them? Darui was silent. He didn't know what Obito said was true or false. But why me? Although you are not good at it now, you have good potential in the future. Obito smiled and said comfortingly, if you take time, it shouldn't end the battle in 1 second like today, but can last a few more minutes. The corners of Darui's mouth twitched slightly. It's better not to say this. But Obito made a lot of sense. There is no revenge for being a bandit here. Only with more powerful force. After he figured it out, Darui did not hypocritically said, I promise to join your Shao organization. It's kind of courageous. Obito backhanded short sword into the Kamui space, patted him on the shoulder, and said, don't worry, join us, you can have a bright future. If our boss's plan is successful, you may be able to see Hokage again. What do you mean? Darui was startled slightly, and hurriedly asked, seeing Lord Hokage again. Does it mean you can revive them? His face was excited, completely lost the composure he had when they first met. Obito did not reply. Darui noticed something was wrong, and quickly recovered his calm. You will know. Obito took out Akatsuki's clothes and thought, what ring should I give you? Green, maybe it's for you. Darui put on a black trench coat embroidered with red clouds, and took over the ring engraved with the word, green. He exhaled. Although he felt like he was on a thief ship, Obito's strength really shocked him a lot. Unexpectedly, besides Haruki and others, there are still so many powerful people in the ninja world. There is no doubt that these strong men are his hope for revenge. Otherwise, he would not dare to face Haruki in his entire life. Haruki, who easily defeated 4th Hokage and 8 Tails Killer B, has become his nightmare unknowingly. And this? Obito handed him a bottle of nail polish. Darui looked at him suspiciously, not understanding what it meant. Apply your nails. Obito said blankly. To be honest, he didn't quite understand the bad taste of senior sister Konan. Darui's eyes widened, and he hesitated. Isn't this unnecessary? Nothing is necessary, this is the rule of our Akatsuki organization. Obito snorted and said, if you want to join, just apply. Darui remained silent and sighed inwardly. All to this point, it's not worth wrangling on such trivial things. He picked up the nail polish and smeared his fingers. Cyan shines in the sun. Darui glanced at Obito and suddenly felt that he should put on a mask too. Obito nodded in satisfaction. Can't suffer the crime alone. As long as everyone is the same, no one cares about him. Should your forces stay here to develop, or all join the Akatsuki organization? He asked, looking at the crowd behind Darui. Due to the previous movement, all the ninjas in the wooden house came out. There are still a lot of people, about 50 people. With a few jonin, it can be regarded as a good organization. Darui thought for a moment and shook his head. Although all the merging into the Akatsuki organization can be maximized, at that time it was involuntary and no longer its own power. In the event of an accident one day, wouldn't it be swept away? Staying here is a way to go. Obito didn't care and waved his hand. His experience during this period of time has long been not an ignorant boy at the beginning, but a well-informed and experienced ninja. He couldn't look down on Darui's power. I just asked casually before. 10 minutes to say goodbye to you. Obito turned and left the wooden house, and went to the foot of the mountain to wait. This one seems to be incapable of home, and is controlled by your illusion. Do we really want to bring this oil bottle? He smiled sarcastically, showing his white teeth. Let him fight a few fights and he will naturally grow. Obito looked into the distance and said lightly, if he is dead, I can only blame him for not being strong enough. Ha ha ha, I like this approach. The voice became lighter again. It was White Zetsu. Obito ignored him, changed the subject, and said, our next goal is not to kill the water country again. I heard that he killed all the candidates in the exam. This temper is fierce enough. He nodded, and suddenly laughed again, his voice awkward. Obito frowned, turned to look at him, and asked, what are you laughing at? Absolutely stopped laughing and said, since you are going to the water country, you might as well consider saving the Black Hoe Thunderfang. The Black Hoe Thunderfang, one of the 7 ninja swords? Isn't he dead already? Obito was unknown, so Makoto personally tracked him down, and it didn't make sense to let him escape. No, he is not dead yet. Absolutely shook his head and said, Uchiha Makoto seems to have accepted an apprentice, so time was lost. He hasn't found the Black Hole Leifong yet, but it will be soon. If no one takes action, it won't take a few days, he will be caught. Obito looked cold. He can tell why White Zetsu is laughing. It turned out that I wanted him to face Makoto. Uchiha Makoto's strength, I know very well, the two of us are not necessarily her opponents. Obito's tone didn't fluctuate in the slightest. Weigong wanted to refute, and then thought of the information White Zetsu had obtained. The battle between Makoto and the Ninja 7 was truly earth-shattering. The clones of White Zetsu everywhere are naturally aware. Obito is indeed worse than Makoto. No Susanoo, and his own words, using some means, are not incapable of solving them. But it is not necessary. Obito saw that he was silent, grinned, and said, we can change it. My relationship with her is pretty good, it's easy to come here personally. Alright. Never speak again. After a while, Darui appeared in front of the two of them. I have already negotiated, is the Weishao organization next? Go to the country of water. We belong to the elite group of Akatsuki. It is a 2-person team. You now have one less teammate. Obito replied calmly. Good. Darui naturally had no opinion. As for who his teammates were, although he was a little curious, Obito didn't say, and he didn't plan to ask. After walking for a while, he remembered a question. What should I call you two? I'm absolutely, hooligan. Darui nodded silently. This kind of name is mostly fake. He thought for a while and said, I'll be called Thunder Fox from now on. After speaking, Summoning took out the storage scroll and took out a white fox mask and put it on. The three left the land of fire and entered the territory of the land of water. Since Makoto didn't hide her trace, she must be found soon. Absolutely, you lead him to Kirigakure. Obito looked at Ju and winked. He didn't want Darui to know his true identity, can. He smiled and said, in the current situation, it is best for Obito to remain mysterious, so as to avoid being caught in the role of Uchiha Madara. From the perspective of his style of acting, he is a proud man. Thunderfox, if you want him to be your teammate, you have to beat him. Obito looked at Darui and said softly. Darui took a deep breath and nodded, indicating that he had understood. This is obviously a test for him. When he was a bandit, he still kept in touch with the outside world. After all, Cloud Shinobi Village was destroyed, but the original spy system has not collapsed. If you don't take Kirigakure's exam anymore, you will become famous in one fell swoop. A cruel genius. Obito watched the two leave and came to a compound. Who? He was discovered just as soon as he approached. It's me, Sister Makoto. Obito opened the door and saw Makoto and a delicate girl. Is this your apprentice? It looks pretty. He is not my apprentice, and then he is a boy. Obito blinked. What kind of boy is this? He suddenly thought of Haruki. Presumably he might be happy, after all, he is a good seed for women's clothing. What are you thinking? Makoto noticed his eyes, and couldn't help but squinted slightly. If you have any strange thoughts, I advise you to do it yourself. How dare I? Obito shivered and shook his head quickly. He knows Makoto's strength quite well. Even though I turned on Mangekyo Sharingan, I still couldn't see enough. Let's talk. Why come to the country of water? I don't believe you came to see me. Makoto snorted, looked at him, and asked, is there any task? I hope Sister Makoto will hand over the Black Hoe Thundertooth to me. Obito scratched his head, didn't say any nonsense, and went straight to the point. What's the reason? Makoto looked through his eyes. It was strange that Obito suddenly appeared in front of her. He also set the target as the Black Hoe Thundertooth. Teacher Haruki ordered it. Obito originally wanted to explain, but the causes and consequences were too complicated. After you go back, you can ask the teacher. When Makoto heard Haruki's name, the doubt in his heart disappeared. Since it was the teacher's request, leave it to you. Just so, that guy is as slippery as a loach. She waved her hand and said, I am not used to being in the water country, so I will bring the white back to Konoha first. Is this little guy called Bai? Obito looked and looked, isn't it really a girl? Well, I plan to let him join the Uchiha clan. Makoto touched his white head. It just so happens that Itachi has no playmates. It's a lucky guy. Obito retracted his gaze, said goodbye to Makoto, asked the location of the Black Hoe Thundertooth, and disappeared. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Chapter 220 Invitation from Mount Myoboku, 2-in-1. Haruki stayed in Shinye village for about a week. As Konoha's support staff increased, he became more and more idle. After making sure that there was nothing wrong, Haruki returned to Konoha. Hokage building. Tsunade is dealing with official duties. The sun fell on her side face with a beautiful luster. Haruki smiled. There was no sound. The addition of Shinye village has further increased Hokage's power. Correspondingly, the number of things that need to be responsible has nearly doubled. These are just 2 villages. If the Kingdom of Thunder and the Kingdom of Fire are merged in later, it will be even busier. Haruki knocked on the door. Tsunade raised her head. If it were normal, she would have noticed it, but she had paid too much attention to it instead. Seeing Haruki, his face was slightly taken aback, and a happy smile was immediately exuded from his heart. Suddenly, it seemed as if sunlight was shining on the water, sparkling. Haruki stayed in a daze, stepped forward, and was about to open his arms before being hugged by Tsunade first. This posture doesn't seem right, the other way around. He pulled out his hands with difficulty and put her in his arms. Tsunade glared at him. If I don't come back, I will be the first Hokage to be exhausted. Haruki patted her on the back and smiled. Why is it so exaggerated? Leave the matter to the executive department, or your shadow clone. Do you think I don't have one? Tsunade took his hand, went to Haruki's office next door, opened the door slightly, and saw several Tsunade reading various official documents. Good guys. Haruki blinked. There are so many Tsunade. The scene looks a bit happy. Of course he has no bad thoughts. Where is Orochimaru? Haruki returned to Tsunade's office, sat on the sofa, and picked her up again. Tsunade leaned against his chest and snorted coldly when he heard Orochimaru's name. I haven't seen him since I came back. I don't know where I went. It's like his character. Haruki was next to her head, surrounded by a faint fragrance. He sighed and said, mostly, I ran to the laboratory. Tsunade was a little itchy by him, stretched out his hand to cover his ears, and said dissatisfiedly. Apart from him, Jiraiya went to Mount Myoboku and didn't come back. Mount Myoboku? Haruki's eyes narrowed slightly. Toad Sage is no simple one. There are countless things to intervene. It can be regarded as the real person behind the scenes of the entire ninja world. Although it is essentially for its own planet, there shouldn't be any problems with Jiraiya. Maybe Toad Sage wants to keep him for a few days. Haruki looked at Tsunade's profile and said softly. Naturally, I know he will not have an accident. Tsunade didn't know anything about Toad Sage, but Mount Myoboku's consistent performance was very kind to Jiraiya and Konoha. Haruki smiled at the corner of his mouth. The two hands that embrace her waist climbed upwards. But it was held down immediately. Tsunade got up and looked down at him condescendingly. Suppressing her inner emotions, she pretended to be calm and said, "Someone will come in at any time." Haruki didn't speak, and waved to her, motioning her to lean closer. "What do you want to do?" Tsunade gave him a blank look, and before he could react, he was pulled over and placed on Haruki. She subconsciously supported her body with her elbows. Haruki stared at the trembling shadow, somewhat ready to move. He raised his hands and attacked Tsunade's creek. "Ha ha ha. What are you doing?" Tsunade laughed suddenly and quickly contracted her arms, but she forgot that her elbows were supporting her, and her body was suddenly pressed down. Meat and egg shock. Haruki's face was hit, and he almost lost the space to breathe. The loose hair covered him tightly. Enough. Tsunade couldn't stand Haruki's attack a little. Tears came out of laughter. Hurts. Haruki was punched directly. Deserve it. Tsunade lifted his body slightly to let Haruki see the sky again. Really, it's so heavy. Haruki rubbed his forehead, curled his lips, and said, "The first gift I received from a long-awaited reunion turned out to be a fist." Tsunade stared at him, suddenly laughed, and leaned over to kiss him on the forehead. "You're making trouble again." She realized something in her leg, bit her lip lightly, and said, "Believe it or not, I'll just break it for you." "Do you think I'm scared?" Haruki shrank his head, but his mouth was extremely hard. "Your teeth can't break the defense. Am I still afraid of your hands?" Tsunade flushed, staring at him, and said, "What are you talking about? Can you speak well?" She quickly got up and distanced herself. Haruki didn't prepare, let her run away. Lie directly on the sofa with a look of despair. Seeing this, Tsunade couldn't help but smiled, and said triumphantly, "What is this called? Make your own way." Hearing this, Haruki glanced at her. "If you weren't in the office, could you be so arrogant?" Tsunade comprehended his eyes, and his heart jumped subconsciously. But still holding his arms around his chest, he said with a strong attitude, "Since I'm back, help me with my official duties." "What?" Haruki obviously didn't expect this. What? Tsunade walked up to him, pulled him up, and sat upright. One hand lifted his chin, slightly on his lips. "The reward for you first. The throats of the two moved. "Tsunade is big, Suddenly a voice rang in the office. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." Shizune, who had just emerged, flushed and disappeared. As Hokage's secretary, she is used to using body flicker technique instead of knocking on the door. But she never expected to see this scene one day. Tsunade's eyes widened suddenly. Rarely there was a trace of panic. She quickly pushed away the sunny tree and wiped the corners of her mouth. "Blame you? Didn't I say that someone would come in?" Tsunade was a little embarrassed and was bumped into by her apprentice. As a teacher, she had no majesty. "Obviously you are also very involved. What did you say?" Tsunade stared at him dangerously. Haruki didn't dare to speak anymore. Humph. Tsunade took a few deep breaths and gradually calmed down. Although still a bit awkward, she opened the door. "Shizune." "What?" Shizune screamed, and immediately reacted, lowered his head, and said, "Tsunade-sama, I haven't seen anything." Tsunade's face froze. "You don't have to emphasize that you didn't see it." She twitched the corners of her mouth and said, "Is there something to come in and talk about?" "Oh, good. Good." Shizune swallowed nervously and entered the office. His eyes touched the clear tree, and he moved away quickly, staring at the ground like a frightened bird. Haruki couldn't help but smile. Shizune is only 14 years old now, and he is not the knowledgeable and calm medical ninja in the original work. Tsunade gave Haruki a white look, and looked at Shizune. His tone softened, and said, "Is there any information?" "Well, there's information." Speaking of business affairs, Shizune gradually returned to normal. She simply dictated, "Master Makoto has returned from the southeast front and brought 6 swords of the 7 ninja swords. 6 knives. Haruki raised his brows and interjected, "What else?" Master Makoto didn't say it. Shizune shook his head. "What about her?" Tsunade sat at the desk again and said, "Send her to come over." "Okay." Shizune walked out of the office and breathed a sigh of relief. That kind of thing just happened. It was too exciting for her pure and young. She squeezed her face. After a while, he came to the residence of the Uchiha clan. "Senior sister Shizune." "It's Shisui." She raised her head and saw Uchiha Shisui, who greeted her. "Oh, and Itachi. Are you just training back?" Shizune noticed that their clothes seemed to be wet with sweat, and couldn't help feeling a little bit. 2 extremely hard-working geniuses. Shisui nodded. "Senior sister, are you here to find Aunt Makoto? We also heard that she is back." "Good." Shizune bent down. "Itachi, let sister hug." The 3-year-old Uchiha Itachi is undoubtedly very cute. He shook his head and said, "I have grown up." "What has grown up?" Shizune directly hugged him, like a little beanie. "How far is it from growing up?" Uchiha Itachi was suddenly depressed. Shisui couldn't help laughing. Uchiha Itachi, who has always looked like a small adult, has nothing to do with Shizune. Three people entered the courtyard. Aunt Makoto. Shisui greeted. Although he is also a student of Haruki, he is a generation behind Makoto, and then called senior sister. Wouldn't he take advantage of Uchiha Itachi for no reason? Besides, it is normal for the teacher to have many students. Strictly speaking, he is not regarded as Haruki's apprentice. Sister Makoto. Shizune put down Uchiha Itachi and saw the white behind Makoto. His eyes lit up suddenly. So cute. Who is this little girl? Uchiha Itachi finally saw the fickleness of women. I was attracted by another person in just a few minutes. He looked at Bai subconsciously. There was a slight shock. It's really cute. Hiding behind Makoto, his little hand clenched the corner of his clothes. His expression was a little nervous and pitiful. Why did your mother go out and bring a girl out? Uchiha Itachi thought about it for a moment. He is called Bai. Makoto touched his white head and said softly, don't be afraid, they won't hate you. In more than a week of getting along, she has clearly passed away. Knowing that she was driven out because of the blood succession boundary. Although it seemed very unreasonable to her, such an experience caused an indelible trauma to Bai's psychology. Yes. Uchiha Itachi took a step forward, stretched out his little hand, and said seriously, my name is Uchiha Itachi. No one will bully you in Konoha in the future. Byakugan condensed slightly, looking at the sincere Itachi, holding his hand hesitantly. Uchiha Itachi laughed suddenly. Good. Makoto couldn't help feeling a little relieved when he saw this. Although her son has been strictly disciplined by her since childhood, his personality is quite good. Did not become extreme. From now on, Bai will be your younger brother, you have to protect him. I definitely will, mother. Huh? Uchiha Itachi raised his head suddenly, the light in his eyes was shaky. Brother? Mother, are you wrong? Naturally there is nothing wrong. Makoto knew he had misunderstood, and smiled. Bai does look a little like a little girl, but he is a real boy. A thunder blasted in Uchiha Itachi's mind. His love is over before it even begins. My brother is not bad too. Shizune thought Uchiha Itachi didn't like his younger brother, so he patted him on the head and looked white again, his eyes sparkling. It's so cute. Bai was so scared that he hid behind Makoto again. Shizune, did you come here for something? Makoto stroked Shiro's head to comfort her. Master Tsunade and Master Haruki, waiting for you in Hokage's office. Shizune finally remembered the business, and said quickly. Why didn't you say it earlier? Makoto immediately stopped what he was doing. Shizune scratched his head in embarrassment. Makoto didn't blame her, squatted down, looked at Bai, and said, get to know your two brothers, and I will go to see the teacher. White nodded and agreed. Itachi, it's not bullying Bai. Uchiha Itachi was not very interested and replied. Makoto disappeared in place, outside Hokage's office. She knocked on the door, got permission, and entered. Master Hokage, teacher. Makoto bowed slightly, saluting. Haruki smiled and asked, I heard from Shizune that you only brought back 6 knives. Logically speaking, with the strength of the 7 ninja knives, none of them should be able to escape. It's Obito. Makoto just happened to ask about this, she said. Obito said to give him the Black Hoe Thundertooth, and said it was your intention. I mean? Haruki stroked his chin. Obito appeared in the water country inexplicably, and still followed his orders. Then there is only one thing. He wants Black Hoe Lei Ya to join Akatsuki's organization. As the 7 ninja swordsmen, although strength is nothing to him, they are already well-known figures in the ninja world. If you die, you lose value. It's more useful in Obito's hands. Does Obito really lie to me? Makoto couldn't help asking when seeing him thinking. Nor. Haruki smiled upon hearing this, and told her about Obito's undercover. Makoto blinked, feeling a little weird. She understands Obito's character. I didn't expect such a jumpy guy to be able to do this. But after looking back, I felt relieved again. After all, it belongs to the Uchiha clan. If he can really accomplish what Haruki-sensei said, he will definitely become famous in the ninja world. Teacher, I went to the water country this time and met a child with a good talent, and I am going to let him join Konoha. Makoto thought of Shiro and said, he has a rare ice escape. Teacher, can you let Hira Shinji accept him as a disciple? Bing done. Ching Shu looked at her unexpectedly. Bing done is really rare. What's his name? White. Makoto replied. Haruki raised an eyebrow. Is it such a coincidence? But it also saves his time. He thought of another genius in the country of water, Kimimaro. If I remember well, he seems to be about the same age as Bai. Would you like Orochimaru to take a trip? If it's being done, I think Shinji Hira is very willing. Haruki naturally wouldn't refuse. After Makoto got the news he wanted, he chatted a few more words and left. Just when Haruki thought he could fight with Tsunade after get off work, a toad appeared in front of him. Haru-sama. Toad Sage invites you to Mount Myoboku. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running.